from like 13, 14 to 19, about twice a week, I would say minimum, he would rape me like twice a week for about 5 years. And I did the math. I did the math on that. And bare minimum, that was like 520 times. And so, yeah, I didn't really do it until recently. I took a world mythology class in college recently. And we were talking about sexual assault, and how like in different cultures and religions, how they would treat people of it. And I kind of like shared my story a bit with the class, and that's when I kind of had to do the math. And I was like, oh, this was this many times.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. I have a very special guest today. I was introduced to her by my friend Ivan. Please welcome Lorelai Suicide. Lorelai, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Now I hear a little twang in you, kind of like people here with me and are accustomed to with me. Where's that twang coming from?
So I'm originally from Baton Rouge, Louisiana.
Come on now. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's born and raised?
Born and raised.
All right. You a sports fan by any chance?
Big LSU Tiger fan. I have to, just part of it, part of the Cajun culture. Got to go Tiger.
That's kind of built into the DNA there. I used to love that coach. I'm not an LSU fan by any means, but I loved Ed Orgeron, I think was his name.
Yeah, Orgeron, yeah.
He didn't even say Tigers, because we have the Clemson Tigers. I'm from the Carolinas, so we have Clemson Tigers. To hear him say it was always Tiger. It was like Tougas or something like that. It was
like, go Tigers.
But that dude got paid, man. That's a whole other story altogether. But I did enjoy that. Y'all got a hell of a first game for the opening weekend. You play Southern Cal, which are you in California right now?
No, I'm in Denver, Colorado. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they play Southern Cal in their opening weekend. So big first weekend for them. So you've got an interesting story. You're a domestic violence survivor. You entered the Army. You actually died twice. Which most people can't even say that one time. So this is a unique interview. And then later on, you got into an industry, which we'll get into. But let's start from the beginning of this whole scenario. I know we covered where you grew up, but kind of tell us a little bit about early life, how home life was like. And then it was at the age of 13 where you kind of got into your first like serious domestic violence relationship. So kind of walk us early life into that.
Yeah. So Cajun families were all very loving. It was a very, like the middle of the Bible Belt type stuff. And so, grew up in a very strict religious household. I couldn't really like express myself, but I love my family dearly. You know what I mean? We have our differences. Right. Growing up, it was pretty all right. I kind of struggled in school, and then at the age of 13, like you said, I entered my abusive relationship.
Right.
From there, and it was with I was like 13, like about to turn 14 when it started. Okay. And from there, I entered a relationship with an 18-year-old, which, like, as an adult now, I couldn't even fathom. You know what I mean? And so from there, it's just kind of puppy. And so from there, it was just kind of rough. Starting out, like it was, oh, you're like so mature for your age. I don't think he was really all there. Like looking back on it, I completely believe he was a socio or a psychopath. Like there wasn't really much humanity in his eyes, if that makes sense, as time went on. And so it, first started off like a lot of love bombing, a lot of, you're my whole world, like a lot of codependency on both parts, because again, I was 13, like I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah. You were kind of getting swoons, sounds like.
Yeah. I was like, oh my God, the senior I like like I was a freshman in high school. Oh my God, he likes me. And this is so cool. Like, you know what I mean? I was a kid. And from there, it just kind of progressed. He was a compulsive liar. I mean, he lied about everything from why he had a pencil in his car a certain way to like, to smoking weed and then cheating on me and everything like for a whole year. He lied about getting a DUI to me for like years. He like about his brain aneurysm. He said, and his mom covered for him, said that he got hit in the head by a stereo. It just fell from his desk or something. And I was a kid. I was like, oh, he just got hit by a stereo, I guess. But like, you know, it's one of those things. He lied about everything. So like very quickly, my perception of reality wasn't really like, I wasn't really there, if that makes sense. Like lights were on, I wasn't really there. Nobody was home. And I don't really remember majority of those 5 years outside of like certain events. Right. And so from the like psychological kind of like twisting a reality and like the physical abuse, like he strangled me. I couldn't even tell you how many times. Like I didn't really realize that that was abuse either, because that was my first relationship and like experience with relationship. So he would strangle me relatively often from like 14, like 15, up until we split. And yeah, it was, and speaking to my therapist relatively recently about it, she's like, that's literally attempted murder. I'm like, oh, you know what? You're right. But it's like, you don't really, I feel like I try to play things off. Like, right. Oh, it really wasn't that bad. Like, whatever. Like,
was it when he was angry, or was this like during another type of, you know, interaction? What was it?
Yeah. So he would get mad at me a lot. He would scream at me a lot. And I mean, just because I would ask questions like, oh, like, I thought like, oh, you're hanging out with her. Like, who is that? Whatever. He said I would do just a friend or whatever, and then get mad at me when I would be like, are you cheating on me? Like what? He quickly isolated me away from like my family and my friends. He kind of pushed me to hate my family. And for a very long time, even now, like that separation is still kind of lingering, you know what I mean? And so he basically groomed me into being this codependent, like wasn't allowed to have male friends, none of that. And wasn't allowed to wear certain clothes or go out ever, really. And from there, from like 13, 14 to 19, about twice a week, I would say minimum, he would rape me like twice a week for about 5 years. And I did the math. I did the math on that. And bare minimum, that was like 520 times. And so yeah, I didn't really do it until recently. I took a world mythology class in college recently, and we were talking about sexual assault and how like in different cultures and religions, how they would treat people of it. And I kind of like shared my story a bit with the class, and that's when I kind of had to do the math. And I was like, oh, this is this many times. And so from there, it would get increasingly violent. And so at one point, him and his friend locked me in the trunk of his car. And I think I was about 15. And it was in Prairieville, Louisiana, which it's a small ass town. And so there was these winding roads that would go through like the swamp, like the bayou or whatever. And they hit it at least like, it was supposed to be like maybe 35 miles an hour, maybe 50 in some places. They were hitting it at like 80, 90, just weaving down the roads. And then they got off the road, and the whole time I was just screaming. Like, I didn't know what was going on. You know what I mean? I was just trying to claw like at the trunk and everything. It was hysterical. And from there, they turned off into a Walmart parking lot, and they switched. So because the ex was driving at the time, and his friend was in the passenger seat, all while hearing me screaming and not doing anything. But that's a whole different, level of fucked up. And his friend got in the driver's seat, and my ex got in the trunk with me and shut the door, and he raped me in the back of the trunk. And his friend drove the same way and would do donuts in the parking lot. Oh, well, this is happening. Like to this day, I can't handle like people like, how some people like fake, like turn the wheel. I can't handle that at all. And so like any kind of reckless driving or loud engines just kind of freak me out with that because of the PTSD and stuff. But like all throughout this, I thought that was normal. You know what I mean? Like I didn't even really realize that that's not what love should feel like until like a couple years ago. And like I'm 26, do some math. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize that that wasn't normal. And because it happened to me at such a young age, and at 19, I ended up leaving that relationship. It was actually over something stupid. Throughout the whole time, he was trying to knock me up, so I couldn't leave him. His words, not mine. And so at 19, I actually broke up with him because he was like the fourth of his name, and I'm like a big stickler on unique names. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I was like, no, like I'm not gonna name my kid after you. Like, no, like whatever. And that kind of stupid little argument actually got me out of that, which is kind of like, wow, like that's why you left. But like it's kind of one of those things where it's like I didn't realize it was abused until like maybe 22. When after I was even out of the army, I didn't even realize. It was just kind of one of those things where I didn't really have many serious relationships before I was in the military, and I thought, like I said, I thought that was normal.
Well, and it sounds like he particularly laid the groundwork to ostracize you from your family, ostracize you from any friends that could possibly help you if you reached out. And that's like the characteristic of pieces of shit like this. We'll just call it what it is, that
Yeah,
do these sorts of things. They make you so dependent that even when you know or feel like you should go, that you have nowhere to go. And like you
exactly.
said, and doing it at such a young, impressionable age, starting at 13, you do become like thinking like this is how it's supposed to be. And I'm sorry you had to go through that. I mean, it sounds like an absolutely awful, awful experience. I can see how it's pulling out of you emotionally. And I mean, it's crazy to think that something as trivial as a name, of not wanting to continue a name, is what got you out of that. Like, probably could
Mhm.
have done that a few years ago, had he pushed that issue. Um, have you ever spoken with him since you split up?
So he was cheating on me, which at this point I don't care. But and so with a girl that was also one of my friends, and he kind of like after I broke up with him, he went with her. He knocked her up. He has a daughter now,
Mm.
which is horrifying. Um, and after they broke up, he tried to reach out to me on Facebook like years later, like relatively maybe in the last like maybe 3 years ago. And I went off. I was like, how dare you reach out to me? How dare you try to slide in my DMs? I was
Yeah.
like, fuck you. You fucking raped the shit out of me. Like you fucking abused the hell out of me for years. How fucking dare you? I was like, next time you fucking contact me, I'm reporting you to police. I'm like, I'm not playing these games. You know what I mean? Like how like I just kept going on like how fucking dare you? Like try to reach out to me after all that. And
Jeez.
so I think I had a conversation with him once before that when I was still kind of not really it completely contorted like my sense of reality.
Yeah.
And so when I was like in and off, I was just like hooking up with people, whatever. I hung out with the girl who was with him, and she went in to go get to the liquor store. We were all in the car. She went in to go to the liquor store, and I've been going through a metamorphosis of my appearance and whatnot, and I was looking a little bit different than I was with him. And he was like, talking to me, oh, you look so much different now, and you look so much better now, like wow. And I was like, you raped me, and like you fucking raped me, because that wasn't the trunk incident, really wasn't the only time. Like there was obviously, like I said, there was fucking 500 of them. One of the times that really like outside of the car when I was a kid, like really like fucking choked me up, was I was unconscious, and I woke up to him strangling me when I was unconscious. Like I had alcohol, super underage, super lightweight, blacked out. And then when I came to, he was choking me and raping me, and I called him out for that in the car, and I was like, you fucking raped me, like you fucking woke me up choking the shit out of me and raping me, like don't fucking talk to me about how I look. And he was like, I don't remember that, but I'm sorry that I did that. Like he believed he would do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, don't fucking apologize to me. Don't look in my general direction. Like, and so from there, I was like completely no contact until he reached out to me on Facebook. And then since I went off on him, he's gone ghost. He's completely ghost, like off the radar. I don't know if he's dead or alive. I hope he's dead, genuinely, for his daughter's sake. Yeah. But yeah.
Hopefully he stays ghost and doesn't bother you anymore in any aspect. What were you doing throughout all this and kind of after this, like for work? Like, were you employed? Were you working? Did he make you? A lot of times they'll make you solely. They don't even want you to work because they want you to have no way of trying to get out.
Yeah. So when I left him at 19, I was about to graduate cosmetology school. Okay. So I worked as a barber for a little bit, and at the same time, I was a volunteer firefighter for like a department literally down the street from me at the time. And from there, I got a couple certifications, and you know, I worked at like sport clubs, and so working there, we had a manager that was not really kind, and so she basically bullied me out of wanting to do hair, which is apparently relatively common. She told me that I should wear makeup every day at work because I make more money when I look good, and she wrote me up for not wearing makeup one time. So I was like, wow, okay. So I would
explain why those places always have high turnover rates. I mean,
yeah. So I quit that because I had certifications. The second I got hired on at a professional department, I was like, fuck this, I'm out. And I like quit right before like the holiday season rush. And I hope it inconvenienced her. Yeah. So from there, I worked for the city of Kenner Fire Department briefly. I was in their academy. And I was holding my own academically. I already had some certifications, and like my EMR certification, which there's EMR, EMT, paramedic. And so I had that already. I had like a driving course cert. Little old me, 5'2", I can drive a big old fire truck, you know what I mean? And a couple others, hazmat. I was actually really good at hazmat for like no fucking reason. But from there, like I was casually it's a cycle of abuse, right? Like I didn't realize I was abused until a couple of years ago. And so from there, I was in a relationship with a corrections officer he was also Army reservist. So here's two stereotypes in like one package, because he would throw shit at me. Like I was only with him for 3 months. He threw shit at me. And one time we were like play wrestling, and I like playfully, like I'm talking like his leg, right? And he got pissed. He whipped around and kicked me in the shin.
Dang.
And I was just kind of like, it like took me back, but also like caught me so off guard that I was just kind of like, what? You know, like, and like he was super, super insecure looking back, because anytime we take a selfie together, if I had like slight cleavage showing, like even just like this, right? He would try to like cover it up in photos. He literally took his hand and did this.
Wow.
Yeah. And so from there, I was joking around with one of the guys at the department during like our like lunch break or whatever. And I told him like, oh yeah, like he kicked me in the shin, like, oh, look at my bruise, like, haha. Like I was making a joke out of it. And he was like, you did what? I was like, and that's when I started to really realize that this wasn't normal, right? Because I hadn't really voiced it to anyone at this point. And I was like, yeah, like like it's right, like I have a bruise right here. He's like, he shouldn't be doing that. Like you need to get out of that. Like what the fuck? And I was like, huh. And so from there, I just kind of was like, oh, this isn't normal. Like it was almost like I don't want to say a culture shock, because that's not the term, but it felt like one to me.
Yeah, kind of a reality check of some sort. It's like, wow, this isn't what it's supposed to be.
I was like, oh, okay, word. You know what I mean? And so from there, I was in the academy. I was academically one of the best in our academy. And but again, I'm 5'2", 80 bitty. I was 80 bitty skinny little thing. And all of the other guys, like I was the only woman in the academy. And at that point, only young, able-bodied woman that would be in the department, because the other two were about to retire. They're older. And the guys were all like 6'2", 6'3", and I'm just like, hey. And so from there, we got apparently this was a common thing. The head chief was apparently incredibly sexist. And I found this out after he moved me to dispatch. He was like, oh, you're not like physically keeping up. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I hold my own, you know what I mean? And he was like, and also it's okay to like fall slightly behind 6'2" guys running a 2 mile, you know what I mean? When you're 5'2", that's pretty normal. I take my limitations in pride. Okay. I'm not very fast. I'm a sprinter. And so like he was like, you're falling behind, like whatever. And I was like, I'm doing okay. Like I'm doing pretty good, you know, like whatever. And he was like, we're gonna move you to dispatch. He moved me to dispatch to avoid a lawsuit. Because in dispatch you got paid more. We were only getting paid $9.50 an hour. Like, and I got paid $13 an hour. I was like, oh, okay. And when I moved to dispatch, I talked to the people that are like, yeah, this actually kind of happens a lot. That's why a lot of women go to the county. And I was like, okay.
So it's hard. I'm assuming it's hard to come back with any sort of countersuit when in actuality they give you a pay bump.
Yeah. And not that I really would, because again, I was like 19, 20. You know what I mean? And I didn't know how to fucking sue nobody. I ain't doing all that. Yeah. And so, yeah. And then from there, I basically said, because I went from running into burning fucking buildings to sitting at a desk all day. I was like, fuck you. And I joined the army out of spite. It's like, I'll prove you wrong. Dies in the army.
That happens. I mean, that's why a lot of people that, you know, especially years ago, they went off and joined got drafted and had to go to war. When they come back, it was a culture shock of how to deal with calm and law abiding, being a law abiding citizen, because they were used to crazy. And a lot of people formed and joined motorcycle gangs back in those days to have that, that rush, but then also the sense of brotherhood, camaraderie, people that watching your back. And that's why a lot of the old time motorcycle gangs, a lot of the members were former military from war. That's why that's kind of the basis of how that started.
Yeah. Wow. A lot of MCs. That makes sense.
Yeah. A lot of, and I'm talking not like, I'm talking back when it started, like from the Hollister riots, the early days of the Angels, that was a lot of what it was people coming back from war. And, originally it started just riding bikes. You wanted that thrill of, the two wheels, something a little dangerous, something to live on the edge. Yeah. And then it just kind of gradually progressed into eventually what they became, which is, I think a whole different vision, but, you kind of get the idea of how they wanted that edgy lifestyle, but then also still have the brotherhood. So that goes in a lot of different aspects of life. I can't imagine, like you said, running into burning buildings and then all of a sudden you're trapped behind a desk.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Didn't want to do anything with it. I was like, fuck y'all. Fuck this. Because it's a lot of multitasking. And you tell me something to do and I'll do it. I ain't going to do 3 things at once. My brain's going to spontaneously combust.
So why the Army, just out of curiosity, of all the other branches? Like, what made you go with the Army?
So I was debating the Marine Corps, but I wanted to pick my job before I signed my life away.
Right.
And so in the Army, that's the only one that you can do it. And then I also didn't think for some reason that I could compete in the Marine Corps, but basic was a breeze for me. So I was like, damn, I wanted a challenge. I thought this was supposed to be hard. And so I picked the Army. I picked, my job as a medic because I was good at medical shit. I had experience with it and I was like, fuck it, why not? Yeah. And so then from there I joined the Army and I liked basic training. It was, it was easy. You tell me what to do and I'll do it. Cool. Gotcha. Kind of thing. With basic, the only thing that was a little bit weird was when we were getting, actually it's called reception. It's like when you first get there, you get all your shots, you get all your measles, mumps, tuberculosis, all that shit. And so I was getting my shots, and the guy, because you're supposed to, Fort Sill is one of the only places that still does the peanut butter shot. They call it the peanut butter shot because inside it is so thick that when it goes in, it feels like peanut butter. I think it's some kind of bicillin, penicillin mix. It don't make sense why they give it to us. They don't tell us what it is, other than it's like, get rid of all the bacteria. But then it makes us all sick because you're getting rid of the good bacteria too and stuff.
Right.
And so it was just kind of like a weird one. Well, I was skin and bones by the time we got our vaccinations because we only had maybe 5-6 minutes to eat. And when I'm working out, my metabolism's going like that.
Right.
And so I was itty bitty. I was skinny, like you could see like my fucking like whatever. It's not, we don't have an Adam's apple, but we got, you know,
Right.
what you doing down there? What? What's wrong? Sorry, I got a little itty bitty little thing. Come here. What's wrong? Okay. I show dogs in American Kennel Club. This is a Japanese Terrier. They're almost extinct, and he's the 60th in the U.S.
Wow.
Itty bitty little thing. I was so skinny. They're supposed to give it in your ass cheek, right? Well, they put it a little bit above my ass cheek, and I don't know if you know like anatomy, right?
Right.
So you have your tendons, your muscles, all that. You also have in your legs going through them is your sciatic nerve.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar.
He hit my sciatic nerve, and I told him with the penicillin. Yeah. And so I told him, I was like, I think you're hitting my nerve, because I could feel the thick, like, because you know when shit's thick, you could feel that shit going in. I could feel it going in all the way down that leg to the back of my fucking heel. I was like, I'm pretty sure you hit my nerve. And he was like, nah, you're good. Just suck it up. Get over it. I'm like, okay, you suck. But anyway, and so it didn't cause any immediate issues. It was more so like later on. So the only thing that I had was like pain, nerve pain, right? Where he got me the initial like injection site where my belt was there. Problem solved. Wore my belt up higher, cinched it a little bit. My waist was a little bit more snatched, and called it a day. Go through basic, no problems. I think I got like a bare minimum knee injury. But like we would get like ingrown, the ingrown hairs. A lot of us got like, they were like cystic. Mm-hmm. And so one of the time, like when I got one of those whenever, I was in basic. And what ended up happening was like, so I went to go get it like taken care of. It was, listen, it was right next to my asshole. Like I'm talking like booty hole. It was like maybe like right here, like right to the side. And so whenever I was doing it, right, whenever I got it done, it was male medics. We were supposed to be able to have like a female representative. They didn't really have one that they could grab or anyone available. So it was a male medic. He was like, hey, but guys, come see this. Again, I was like face down on a fucking table, no pants on, no nothing. And they were just spreading it all. And they were like staring at it, like touch, like whatever. And I was like, like the fuck? And so like this ain't necessary. He's like, oh, we're doing it because they've never done it before, so I'm showing them how to do it. I'm like, oh, sure, you just want to see some pussy, but okay, yeah. So it's not funny, but it's funny.
The way you said it was funny. I guess
it's okay to laugh. And so that was like very uncomfortable. And then they had to pack it with gauze. So every couple days I would go in and they'd like repack it until it healed basically. And same thing. And like maybe the first 2 times it was the same couple guys, and they were like wrapping each other with like fucking gauze, like just doing crazy shit before the doctor came in. I was like, all right, whatever. I don't give a fuck. Like this is how it is.
Yeah.
And so, that got all taken care of, but that was a whole thing. And then from there, I graduate basic. I go to my little job school, my AIT, and to be a medic. And I'm going through no problems. Like literally, I had that irritation in my knee. Like in basic, you don't go to sick call. You don't go to get shit taken care of in basic. Otherwise, you're stuck there for a longer time.
Yeah.
So from there, I didn't get my knee checked out in basic. So I got it checked out in AIT. And in AIT, it was really, really starting to hurt. So it was on my opposite leg that the sciatic nerve thing was, the injection was. So I had to put my weight on the side where it was actually my right leg. And so I had to put my weight on it because my left knee was fucked. And from there, I kind of, don't you fall off this thing. And so from there, I put more weight on it. It got a lot more irritated, like that nerve injection site. And so over time, so I was about halfway through when the shit started hitting the fan for me. And so from there, I went to sick call, like whatever, to get my knee checked out. And then I'd go to classes, whatever. but then all of a sudden, like there was one day where like my legs started walking funny, like that side just wasn't, it's like the signal to the brain was a little messed up.
Right.
And so my leg, like as you walk, like you're walking straight, well, that right leg started walking out a little bit out and further and further. And from there, like obviously I was like, I don't know what the fuck's wrong with my leg. Like, maybe check it out. I don't know. And they're like, oh, just take some Tylenol, it'll be fine. I'm like, okay, cool, great. And from there, it was almost overnight, practically, from my leg like starting to go, that entire side of my body started messing up. And to this day, they don't know exactly what the fuck happened. It's like, I'm not like this way now, obviously. But they're not sure what exactly like misfired for this. And so one morning, like we were at formation and like my back started twitching. Like my only the right side of my spine just started like over and over and over. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then over the time span of like a week, because I obviously after a couple of days, I was like, this isn't going away. Let me get it checked out.
Right.
And I was in and out of like the sick color TMC or whatever they want to call it. And then from there, it progressed over the time span of a week. So it went from the bottom of my spine all the way up through my shoulder and eventually my neck and vocal cords. So about after a week after it started, I was like this. And then from there, like in my vocal cords, like I couldn't speak. Like it was almost like my vocal cords were spasming. And so from there, my hands started shaking. Almost, I was 21 years old and I looked like I had fucking Parkinson's. Like it was really, really bad. And nobody, to this day, nobody knows what fucking happened. And so like I had like this in my hands and then in my legs. At this point, they put me on crutches because my legs weren't working right and just overall Band-Aid. Let's give her crutches. That'll help. But they were underarm crutches. This is important information because my right shoulder, sorry, put the puppy down. My right shoulder was going like this, right? Underarm crutches, shoulders going down, crutches is staying in place. Yeah. I'm like, it's going all over the place because it was happening when I was walking. So I was just hitting people accidentally. You know what I mean? Trying to get through the fucking crowd. It's funny, but it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. Yeah. And so from there, I started having like a mental break because understandably I was in my prime and now all of a sudden I look like I had fucking Parkinson's. And so I go back to the doctor and I'm like, and I just start hysterically crying because like people can't help but stare because it's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
There's so much pity and sympathy in their eyes and I hated every second of it. And so I went back to the doctor and I'm like, I'm tripping on my crutches. Like, can you like do something? Give me something else because I'm literally tripping on the fucking crutches. I'm hitting people. And they're like, oh, like that. And so I was starting because he was like, what the fuck happened? Like, is there any injury, anything that could have like caused this? And I was like, the only thing I could think of is they like hit my sciatic nerve with the fucking peanut butter shot. And they were like, they did what? And I was like, yeah, I fucking felt it going all the way down my fucking leg when they injected it. And they were like, holy fucking shit. They're like, hold on. Like, he was like, keep every fucking document you have from that. I guess so I could sue him or whatever. But yeah. And so he's like trying to track down shit, trying to track down how much time went from whatever. And I'm like, cool, this guy's listening. This guy's understanding me. He gets me, whatever. And then I start fucking having a mental break, understandably so. I'm hysterical at this point. And the guy's like, he sees me crying and he's like, actually, I'm going to get a second opinion. So I thought we were going down the hall. He has a nurse escort me to behavioral health for a psych eval. Like, not for like, oh, I'm concerned about your safety and mental health and well-being, to see if it was fucking like anxiety or some shit causing this. And so like before it gets into neurology, he was trying to send me to physical therapy before neurology, when I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not gonna fucking help. And so I get like a nurse escorts. They don't tell me where I'm going until we're outside. It's a nurse has had to escort me there. And I was like, what, like, where are we going? And they're like, oh, we're going to behavioral health. Like, I was like, why are we going to behavioral health? I thought we were going to get a second opinion. They're like, we are. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And so they take me to behavioral health. I get there, they're pissed. I live, laugh, love these bitches because they were like, what the fuck? You need a goddamn neurologist, not a fucking psychologist. They were pissed on my behalf, and I was very grateful. They were like, I'm not telling you to go to the ER until somebody fucking listens, but if you were my daughter, I would tell you to go to the ER until somebody fucking listens because you need a damn neurologist, not a goddamn psychologist. Yeah. I was like, fair. And she was like, yeah, you're fucking 21 years old. Like you can barely fucking walk. Like this isn't like you're not having ideations. You shouldn't be in psychology. I don't know why the fuck they'd send you here. So they chewed their ass out. And from there, the commander of the TMC, like the medical center, became my doctor. We're not supposed to have doctors in TRADOC, but he became my doctor and took over my case because what the fuck. And so from there, I was in and out of the hospital a lot. And I wasn't able to go to classes, obviously. And so, like, they have this thing called the, like, almost like when you get hurt, you go there, like, it's not a rehab unit, but, like, it was like a rehab unit, basically, where they would send people that, like, need to be, like, physical rehab, like, whatever, and then get back to their job training.
Yeah.
I was too fucked up for that. They told them no, that they think I need more intensive care than they can provide. And I was like, okay. So what ended up happening was they would send me on convalescent leave, like medical leave. And I like for a month, and then I would come back. And the second I would come back, I'd end up in the hospital because they're like, we can't have you here. At this point, I was on a walker with wheels, like a rollator. I had a little seat I could sit down on. Cherry red rollator. Don't get me wrong. I was getting mad bitches with it. Oh my God, I'm so sorry that happened to you. I'm so sorry. Like, oh, are you okay? How are you doing? Getting mad, pulling mad bitches. Mad bitches.
Playing that sympathy card for all it's worth.
Yeah, I had some game. And then from there, so like I said, I was in and out of the hospital, and come around October, I believe it was October 9th, this happened. One of the times I came back, I was in my in my little Charlie battery, like whatever. And so they that's when things started getting worse. So you know how like a chameleon walks? Mm-hmm. Like that's how I walked with my rollator, where before it was just like a little bit spaced out. And then that's when my speech really, really, really became an issue. It was almost like, it wasn't quite like a stutter because I couldn't even correctly form like the words I wanted to say either. It was like I was trying to speak, but like my voice wouldn't let it. I would just like keep stuttering on a certain word, like I'm talking like if I were to say, I'm hungry. I'm hungry. Is what it would sound kind of like. And so like I couldn't trying to say a full fucking sentence. It just wasn't possible at that point. And I couldn't communicate, and my hands were shaking so bad that I couldn't hold a cup. And we didn't have straws, and we were supposed to do cups to chest, and all this other shit. Obviously I got out of that because I had a rollator, but you know. And so, but I couldn't drink out of a cup. And I just completely, because all this time I was in, after that first mental break, I was just in denial. People like, oh, how you doing? How are you feeling? Like, oh, like, how are you doing? Like, oh, I'm great. I'm fine. I don't know what you're talking about. Like the denial was bad. I spoke to one guy like months later, and he was like, yeah, it was really, really bad. And I was just like, I don't know what y'all are all freaking out about. Like, I'm good. Like, it was like for about maybe 3 or 4 months, I was in solid, heavy denial about it. And then I just kind of snapped. Not like snapped like mad, but like snapped like I just started hysterically crying, like at the DFAC, just sitting like with people that knew me, and I couldn't like hold a cup. And I was just like, I just started freaking the fuck out.
Kind of really all set in for you.
Yeah. It took a couple months, but yeah. And so it all just kind of sat in, and I was looking around, and everyone was staring at me like they wanted to help me, but they didn't want to humiliate me by offering to feed me. You know what I mean? Like there was one girl who, I told my friend like that she used to work in a nursing home, and she wanted to help, but she didn't know if I like wanted the help. You know what I mean? And which, you know, it's really kind of her to think about that, because I couldn't feed myself. We had like spoon fork. It was just it was just bad. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't like drink or whatever. And from there, because I just ended up having like a mental breakdown and then like left. And one of my friends followed me because we had to have a battle buddy system. And from there, the drill sergeant was like, all right, we're going to the hospital. We're going to go back to the hospital, have a little visit, have a little chat. And so I go to the hospital, and at this point, like I like my head, like because my head was like doing this, my hands were doing this, like I couldn't do anything. I was just kind of there, and it was probably one of the most terrifying things that I've been through, because like I was there, like physically, but like mentally I was like all there, but like my body wasn't. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't like cooperating. It was like I was trapped like a prisoner in like my own body. And it was just the most horrifying thing that I've ever experienced, like domestic violence and everything. Like that was just because it was almost like it was against myself, but not, you know what I mean? Right. And so from there and the ER, because the spasms wouldn't stop, they just would not stop. And it was getting worse and worse and worse. And I was just hysterically crying. And so they ended up giving me lorazepam, like via IV. And it's like the same thing as Ativan. It was the liquid version, and they just kept giving it to me. Again, I was 115 pounds, 5'2", itty bitty, and they just kept pumping me with it. If it didn't work, they would give me more and more and more. I ended up ODing. So I died. I flatlined in my sleep. I completely stopped breathing, and that's what caused it. I went into respiratory arrest, depression, and then my heart stopped. And I guess I wasn't hooked up to the machines correctly because it was at Brooke Army Medical Center in San Antonio, Texas. And it's supposed to be one of the best hospitals, like in like military hospitals out there, right? Well, the fucking, I guess I just wasn't hooked up because nobody like came running for a while. It was my fucking vitals tech. It happened at the right moment to where my vitals tech happened to walk in. And at this point, I was, like I said, I was in and out of the hospital. They all knew me. I would wake up immediately the second that my fucking, because they would always have to re-stick me to get my blood. They'd never take it out of the IV. And so I would just wake up like clockwork because I hate needles. Right. And from there, you know, like I wasn't conscious. I was just told this afterwards. Right. And so I wasn't waking up, and he started to freak out because I wasn't breathing. And so he like called everybody, whatever, they had to resuscitate me. And like my fucking, all I remember is being really, really cold. Like this. So the first time that I died, what I experienced is I was just like, it was like ice. It was just really, really, really cold. And I mean, I was at peace, you know what I mean? Like it was, my experience with death isn't like, oh, my life flashed before my eyes. I saw my body below me. It was, I call it the void because I don't know how else to describe it. It was dark, but and like kind of like eerie, but it wasn't scary, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. It was just peace. Like there was no nothing. It was literally nothing. But I felt very, very peaceful. I remember feeling really, really cold. And then the rest of it was a blur when I came out of it.
What's around you when you're in this place? Like, I mean, is it scenery? Is it dark? I mean, what's the scenery like?
It's just dark. It's like another level of darkness, if that makes sense. There was like maybe like some little wisps of like almost smoke, like white smoke looking like around. But like when I would like look around, I faintly remember talking to someone, but I don't know who it was. And I'm not like Christian, and it didn't feel like anything in Christianity that I was raised in, right? So I'm not like, oh, I talk to God. No, not quite. But it felt really old, really, really old. Like whatever it was, its presence felt really, really old and ancient. But it wasn't hostile. It wasn't scary. Like I don't fear death. Like I know what's waiting for me, right? And so like it wasn't anything but peaceful, and it's like it took my worries and my whatever was going away. And it was almost like an embrace in the dark. Obviously, like I don't really see much, but it felt like an embrace, like I was being held.
That's interesting that you get those feelings, because just like picture in a dark place where I can't really see in white wisp of smoke, like I'm thinking that would scare the shit out of me.
Right. Yeah.
Um,
And when I tell people that, they're like, ah, and I'm like, no, you don't feel it. You don't feel
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm picturing like walking through a haunted house, and I was like, well, looking around trying to figure out a way out. But
Yeah.
like that's really surreal though, that you feel like, the exact opposite. You feel peace. You're not, in pain, especially, coming, I don't say coming out, but like, the situation that we were just into there. That's really interesting.
Yeah. It felt like an embrace, and it took away, like, I didn't have any emotions. I didn't have anything than just being like really, really content, really,
Right.
really peaceful. And speaking from experience, dying in your sleep, by far the way to go. I like, everybody's like, oh, if I want to die in my sleep. Yes. Yeah. So like that's that much more calm and peaceful than my other experience with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you've got to pick a way to go, that's probably the way I would like to go.
Yeah, speaking
Yeah.
from experience, I highly recommend it. But like don't. But like if you had to pick,
If the man comes and like, I'll let you pick the way you go out, I'm probably gonna pick that. I
yeah,
don't want to do anything to where I see it coming, a wreck, or
yeah,
obviously anything
nothing.
violent of that nature, because I just got to think those moments are absolutely terrifying. I've been in car wrecks where I thought I was gonna die, and
Hmm.
just that feeling of knowing you're in a dangerous situation and not knowing if you're going to come out of it, even though it's only like 3 or 4 seconds or 5 seconds. It's
Yeah,
terrifying.
it's horrifying. I
Yeah.
actually did a paper on near death experiences. I'm in college right now, and it's actually near death experiences. You don't have to die to have one. Like
Right.
your brain has to think it's dying.
Yes.
And so with near death experiences and people who have actually died, there's three like things that people normally experience, like three categories. One is the darkness that I mentioned. Two is the life flash before your eyes, like seeing your body, like whatever, right? Which I had that one also the second time around. The third one is like some kind of, I forget the name of it, like some kind of like like, and this one's incredibly rare, horrifying, damn near like hellish like experience where like you're burning and like you're dying, like there's all kinds of like horrible shit around you per se. That one's incredibly rare. That like never happens
Yeah.
for something that's also incredibly rare. So like you have to like, you know what I mean? Like it's the odds, or you're not going to have that experience.
Right.
And
I've
so
probably heard more of like the out of body experience that you mentioned. I
yeah.
have heard people saying like they were, I forgot who it was. I mean, listen to so much stuff, but the guy was saying that he was, you know, clinically dead, and while he was under it, he was being dragged into hell. He said demons were chasing him. They got him and they hooked something to him, and he was basically being dragged into what he knew was hell.
Yeah.
And as he was being dragged there, then he woke up. And after that, of course, he completely had a different outlook on life going forward.
That's actually a thing with near death experiences, that it's incredibly common for people to like basically everyone who has it completely changes their life drastically in one way or another.
Yes.
From this one, from that, became more of my religion. Like I'm Norse pagan. I was like, okay, cool. I'm gonna cling to that religion for a little bit. And then from there, I worked hard. I kind of fell into a hole of despair because understandably, like I was at my prime in my life. Like I was a firefighter. I was in like just started my like military career, and it was completely ripped away from me like in an instant for shit that wasn't even my fault. And a lot of people are like, "Oh, you probably had pre-existing conditions." Like, no, I was a fucking firefighter beforehand, because they always the vet, yeah, like the vet bros are always like, "Oh, like she didn't, it was probably, I don't know, anxiety or something." I'm like, just shut the fuck up, like. But like from there, I kind of fell into like a really, really intense depression for years.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to like basically, I got medically retired out. I'm thinking it was the whole death thing. They were like, okay, we're gonna smooth this over with a medical retirement.
Yeah.
I didn't get separated. I got retired because there's a big difference. And so from there, I had my VA rating at like 60%, and within a couple months, it was bumped up to 100% permanent total. So for all the people that are like, oh, it's probably pre-existing conditions, say that to my fucking 100%. Thank you.
Yeah.
But
that kind of paints the picture for you there.
Like, and that's why I don't consider myself a veteran. I was prior military briefly, and then, you know, like I like to joke my like VA award and like my fucking retirement is like a participation trophy.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I got a really sick participation trophy.
When you
like,
come out of this, were you normal?
Huh?
When you come out of that, were you like back to normal? Were you still shaking? What was your like status?
What ended up happening while the entire med board process was going, because that took like 8 months, I basically they tried a bunch of different medications. They tried a shit ton of muscle relaxers. Nothing was like helping until they put me on Keppra. Keppra is a seizure medication. Okay. They didn't I didn't have seizure activity on the little brain scan, but they put me on Keppra and it stopped. So okay. Whatever works, I guess. But with Keppra, I don't know if you know anything about Keppra. You get Keppra rage. It's like roid rage on steroids type shit. Like, I was a very like, I don't like to take up space. I'm sorry for inconveniencing staying in this room, like type of personality at the time. And because again, not the best history. And so from there, like they put me on Keppra, and I was like fucking yelling at the damn nurses. Like it was bad. It was really, really bad, because they were like, oh, like we can't have you like leave the bed. Your fall risks. You have to hit the button. I was like, I gotta fucking pee. Hurry the fuck up. Like they're like, here's a potty chair because we can't connect you from your EKG, not EKG, EEG, the seizure one.
Yeah, the monitor one, yeah.
Yeah, and we can't unconnect you. I was like, the other nurse did. I have a battery pack right here. I can do it my fucking self. I'm not, because I was sharing the room with someone else. I was like, I'm not fucking peeing in front of them. They have company. Like, it's like, let me go to the fucking bathroom. And I like I said, like I had the smallest like doesn't make eye contact. Like, oh, I'm so sorry for like, I don't know, being in
total 180.
Yeah. I was like, they need to put that shit on the label. Will be pissed. Like, for 2 weeks, I was just livid, like constantly, like, get away from me. Like, it was really, really bad. Polar opposite to my personality, and to say the least. And from there, after that subsided, like the muscle spasms stopped within a month or so. And like they had decreased until they stopped. Basically, they got the right dosage. From there, I got really, really bad migraines. They thought it was a side effect to the medication. But again, every like 4 to 5 seconds, my neck was going like this. Like constantly. It was like and I could feel the vertebrae. Even now, I can feel the vertebrae like trying to like break itself. It felt like. That's how like violent it was. And my head would my chin would tilt up and my head would go like this. And at one point it was just kind of like stuck for like a week. And I was like, okay, this is cool. Like, can y'all maybe do something about it? But it's like I said, it's not funny, but it's funny. I'm like, hi guys, what's going on? Because again, denial every now and then. So I'm like, yeah, no, I'm fine. Like every couple seconds. And I ended up having whiplash from that.
Yeah.
Because it was constant for like 5 months. And I have degenerative disc disease in my spine from my neck and in my lower spine. And my, after the spasm stopped, like I said, I got whiplash. It felt like a baseball bat hit me in the back of the head. Mm-hmm. Like it felt like it was bad. And I didn't know what was going on. I was hysterical. It was so bad. Like I grew up in the South. You know, like my twang comes in and out because I'm in Colorado, but I'm from the South. And so in the South, you can't convince nobody to go to the hospital for nothing.
Yeah.
Like I had to convince my dad one time to go to the hospital because he was having heart attack symptoms. Yeah. And I was like, you need to go to the hospital. Like it took me 30 minutes to convince him to go to the hospital. He's like, no, I'll take an aspirin. I'll be fine. I'm like, you motherfucker. So whenever this was happening, majority of the, like, it really, like when that pain really sat, it was in, I was on con leave, like I said, going back and forth. And I was like, Mom, like, you got to take me to the hospital, like right now, like right now. Like I couldn't handle like any noise. You know what I mean? Like it felt like it was like ice pick, right from here, like from the back of my neck onward kind of thing. And I was like, Mom, you gotta take me to the hospital. Like, I feel like I'm fucking dying. It feels like my head is being split open. Like, you need to take me to the hospital. She was like, no, you're fine. You're just being dramatic. I'm not taking you to the hospital. I don't want them to bill me. I'm like, I'm covered by TRICARE. You need to take me to the hospital. You're not gonna have to pay shit. She's like, I'm not taking you to the hospital. Just get over it. You're just being dramatic. I'm like, you need to take me to the hospital right now. I had whiplash. Ended up having whiplash. She would not take me to the hospital. She even took my phone so I could not call 911. This is the southern living. At one point, I had even like passed out during all of this, obviously dying. I got high blood pressure after I started having high blood pressure after I flatlined, started having heart issues from that. And then from there, like my, at one point I like passed out, like getting out of the tub, like face down, broke my nose, like from it was unconscious for like about like 30-ish minutes, I want to say. Cause I remember looking at my phone. I think I fell backwards and then I like tried to like crawl at one point and I like face planted like right on the ground and I was out for like, I don't know if I fell on my dog or what. I woke up and my dog was licking my face. I was like, oh, okay. And I'm like, Mom, I call my, cause at this point I was like kind of out of it. I didn't want to like move. I was like, call my mom. I was like, Mom, I passed out. I'm on the floor. Can you take me to the hospital? You're fine. Stop being dramatic. Get up. I'm like, okay, cool. Appreciate it. Mom in the ear. But, yeah, so I ended up going to after hours, after when the whiplash started setting in.
Is this a VA or like a regular hospital?
Just regular after hours clinic, actually, right down the street from your house. Not even to the VA, nothing. Just after hours. Wow. This is what I negotiated myself into because hospital apparently wasn't an option. And from there, they were like, "Yeah, you need to go to the hospital, but since you won't take you, also you have whiplash. These are all the symptoms from it." Your like muscle spasms finally stopped. And I guess when they finally stopped, because they were constant for like 4 or 5 months, when they finally stopped, it set in and it was brutal for like a month and a half. I want to say I was just having horrible migraines. So they thought it was the Keppra giving me migraines. So they took me off the Keppra, but the spasms were gone. Right. So from there, the pain started setting in. So I started getting really, really bad joint pain. My back was just miserable all the time. My neck was obviously in pain from all that. And from there, it just got worse and worse and worse in my joints. I have fibromyalgia from that whole entire ordeal. They think that the muscle spasms and everything could be MS. They've been suspecting it for like 5 years. But the VA is the VA. So my pain management doctor's like, until your symptoms get worse, we can't really do anything.
Right.
Cool. Word. But so they don't really fully know. I have been diagnosed with unspecified autoimmune disorder. So they don't know which autoimmune disease I have, but they know I have one because I have all the symptoms of it. It's just kind of one of those things. I'm like, thank you, VA, for instead of doing tests, just putting the label on it and calling it a day. Word.
It's crazy that nobody can pinpoint what you had going on. I mean, like, this is very odd.
And now that it's stopped, there's no point in looking.
Right. Like there's no way for them to tell now we're tested because it's stopped.
Yeah. And so from there, I have fibromyalgia, I have chronic pain syndrome, and a couple other pain conditions, and then pain from the autoimmune disease. So I have chronic pain. It eventually got so bad that I had to be put in a wheelchair. So I was in a wheelchair for about maybe like 1.5, 2 years. It was custom built. VA did good on that one. Carbon fiber. I also had carbon fiber forearm crutches that would change colors in the sun. I made sure they pulled out all the stops because I'm like, I'm 20, I'm young, I'm 21. You're gonna give me the shit. So,
that's so much shit to go through when you're just 21 years old. I mean, it's fucking insane.
Yeah. Oh, don't worry, it gets worse. And so from there, unfortunately. So from there, my dad ended up passing away as I was transitioning out of the army.
Sorry.
So this is where they kind of start to suspect that everyone on that side of the family has some sort of gene that doesn't do well with any type of benzos. So like from me flatlining from ODing on it, right? My dad was OD'd on morphine. I believe it to this day. No one can tell me otherwise. He had all the symptoms of it. They kept pumping it more because he would yell out in pain, and it just built up in his system, and he was completely like delirious, and to the point it shut down his organs. So what ended up happening was he fell and shattered his femur. Had surgery. They had to like literally, it was shattered. They had to piece it all back together, and then they kept giving him morphine, and his intestines wouldn't wake up. They said, I'm like, that's not a thing. That's not really a thing. I kept telling my family, I was like, they're giving him too much morphine. They need to stop. They need to give him something else because he is delirious. He's gone. You know what I mean? Like he wasn't even like mentally there. He, like you should like, no, just stop giving it to him. Give him anything else. Give him Tylenol. Fuck, pull one of those.
Yeah. And they charge $75 for.
Right. And so they just kept giving him more because he would scream out. And my family wasn't listening to me because I didn't finish my job school. And I'm like, I have personal experience with this. Like, you need to, like, and I was like, they're just like, and even the nurses, a couple of the nurses were like, y'all need to stop giving him fucking morphine. Like, this is symptoms of an OD. Like, y'all need to stop. They wouldn't stop. And so he ended up passing away. There was so much gas built up in his system because nothing could go through. And he was miserable. And it ended up suffocating him. And so from there, he passed away. All while like I was dealing with all of that, right? I was on forearm crutches at the time. He ended up passing away. And me and my dad were really, really close. And I'll tell you that I am so convinced, and I haven't really talked about this publicly actually, that so in like Norse like mythology, paganism, whichever your beliefs are, right? Like Odin died for knowledge. He like hung himself on Yggdrasil. He stabbed himself with a spear. He died. He was dead, and then he rose again, whatever, and had all the knowledge of like whatever. And so from me dying, this is one of the reasons that I clung to my belief system, right? Whenever I was literally like using the bathroom, and then I just kind of zoned out. And then I saw my dad's, before he died, my dad's hospital room, which he had been moved, so I'd never seen this room before. I saw every single detail with the ventilation tube, with the hairs on his knuckles, with everything, hours before he died. Like, I kid you not, down to like the people in the room, like to the blanket on his fucking bed, like literally every single fucking detail, to the point where when we get there after he passes, like when my mom calls me and tells me he's dead or that he's not breathing, and I just kind of like zone out because I was like majorly like, what the fuck, because I had just saw it a couple hours prior. And my dad, like looking back, hindsight 2020, if someone's dying, they're going to tell you that they're dying, and they're not going to, if they tell you that, they're not going to make it, regardless of like what the situation is, like rushing, especially if it's somebody's telling you like as an EMT or a paramedic that they're dying, they're not going to live. Like, they're not making it type shit. And like, that's a really like important detail, because my dad kept saying that he was dying, and it didn't click with me, because why would it? Like, he just went to have surgery on his leg.
Right.
You know, and I was also dealing with my own shit. I'm like, and the more he said it, the more I was kind of like, something's not right. Something's wrong. And my mom would just wave it off like, oh, you're just overreacting. Stop. You're going to be fine. And he was just being like, you'll be okay. Like, he talked to me on the phone like the day before, and he was like, you're going to be okay. Like, I love you. You're going to be okay. And it was so surreal to like have like that vision per se. And then hours later in his room and seeing every single fucking detail, I was so much in shock from it that I think it really helped me with my grieving process, because had I not, I think I would have just gone off the rails just completely, because I was already like my body was taken away from me, right? At this point, in multiple different ways. And then my dad, who I was like the closest with in the world, dies. And then it's like leaves me feeling like so isolated because, you know, he's my dad. And from there, you know, like it was just like everything just flew by so quick. You know, like it was just really, really surreal just seeing everything, you know, in that hospital room. It was actually insane. And then from there, getting out of the Army, right? I'm in so much pain. I'm miserable. I seek into a really, really deep depression for a couple of years because I'm like, I was in my prime and now I can barely walk type shit. And then from there, you know, like in Southern mentality, oh, you got to get back on your feet. You got to, you know, get a job, get money, like whatever. And I'm just like, how do I do anything at this point? I don't have my dad. You know, my career was taken away from me. Like, and every, like, all my friends, I didn't really have friends before I left for the Army. I had one best friend that we were best friends for 9 years for. And, you know, we split, and I still regret that to this day. Like, I miss her so much. And like, coming back to that environment, I had nothing, not even my own like body per se. And from there it was really rocky. Well, right before my dad died, I actually reconnected with a guy from AIT who recognized me, but there's so many people, almost, I call it like they were paying their respects. They would come up to me and like, oh, how are you doing? How are you like feeling? Whatever. But it was like everyone. So it was almost like they were like paying their respects to me.
Yeah.
For like what happened, and he was one of them. And we connected on Facebook. I was like, oh, like, how are you doing? Like, whatever. Well, me and him ended up getting married a couple of years, or not even, maybe a year later. I ended up moving out to Colorado for him. And I get knocked up damn near almost instantly. And from there, it started out good. Like most of my relationships at this point that I've talked about started out good. I had a lot of really, really unhealthy, like, I don't want to say coping mechanisms, but like behaviors that I had learned to keep myself safe from past relationships.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like whenever, like, and also being in the South, but like, you know, arguments would be yelling matches, like whatever. Like I would just I would go into fight or flight and just flee. I would just leave. Like, you know what I mean? Which made him worry and all this other stuff. It started out good, and I started working on myself and getting better, but he started getting worse as I got better. And from there, like, he wouldn't even really, like, I'd be home all day, like in pain, just miserable. And he'd come home and I'd be like, oh, I'm so happy to see you. And he's like, no, I need time, at least whatever. And I'm like, but he wouldn't communicate that. He would just kind of like ignore me and go play video games. And I was like, okay, whatever. Well, my autoimmune system or symptoms got like a million times better when I was pregnant. Like so many times better. Like, because when you're pregnant, it suppresses your immune system.
Right.
So my overactive immune system was like gone. I was just dealing with pain. And but other than that, I was feeling so much better. And so from there, you know, I go along with my pregnancy. Our relationship's shit at this point, and it turns into a lot of him like yelling at me and a lot of trying to manipulate me in different ways. He very quickly turned like cold and heartless. He would say hurtful things, and I would be like, hey, like that really hurt my feelings. Can you like validate like me and my experience, like whatever. There were times where I cried begging for validation, like on my hands and knees, like just crying, or over text or whatever, just crying hysterically, just begging for a crumb of validation for how he hurt me. And he'd always be like, it's not my fault you took it that way. I know how to pick him clearly. And so from there, our marriage was just really, really, really bad. It was a lot of psychological abuse, a lot of narcissism on his part. And then after I have my son, like things get better momentarily. And then like, I remember whenever I was pregnant, he would just say, there was one time when I was pregnant where he said that I looked like a turnip. And I like was at the, like, it was just really weird. He was like, damn girl, you look like a turnip. And I was like at the most insecure about my body that I've ever been in my entire life. Right. And I just sank to the floor crying. Like I literally just like started crying and sank to the floor. And he just starts laughing at me. And I'm like, why are you laughing? Like, this is like really, really fucked up. Like, why, like, how could you call me turnip? Like, you know, I'm really insecure about my body. And he just starts laughing. He thought I was joking as I was sinking into the floor crying, like 7-8 months pregnant, like in our kitchen. he claimed he thought I was joking. He said it was a misunderstanding. After hours of me being like, that was very incredibly hurtful. Like, how could, like, don't, like, just apologize to me. It took him a day and a half to apologize. A day and a half.
Especially being pregnant too. I mean, like, your hormones, emotions are going to be going crazy. You want to do everything you can to keep your pregnant wife as happy as possible, especially when you get into the later months.
Yeah. And for that to just, and he kept saying, well, it's not my fault. Like, you took it that way, like this and third. I'm like, I'm pregnant. 8 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant. And it was just like super, super bad on my mental health. Like, I was literally like suicidal from him mistreating me like all the fucking time. Just starting arguments about nothing and then just manipulating it to be like, well, you're at fault. You're like this and the third. And I'm like, what the fuck? And he got so cold and detached that if I spent most of my pregnancy crying because of shit he did to me and shit that he said to me. And it was just so overwhelming. I had been through so much at this point, dealing with so much at once, being in constant pain. As you get bigger, your pain gets worse because you have more weight on your bones and shit. And so at one point when I was like maybe like 8-ish months pregnant, I didn't know I had a hip injury from when I was in the Army. I had no idea. Thought it was my regular hip pain or like my regular pain. And I couldn't put any weight on my right leg. That same leg that the nerve was fucked up in. I had like a, where you're like socket in your hip, whatever.
Ball joint or whatever they call it.
Yeah. I had a huge tear in the pelvis part. And it was there for so long, I had cysts in it. And I couldn't put any weight on that leg. So he had to like carry me to and from or whatever. I was using my wheelchair like all the fucking time. It really came in handy during my pregnancy because of that. And so we were in like a 2-story house. So it was like weird. But from there, I had my son. Things got better in our relationship momentarily. And then it got really, really, really bad. Just really, really, really bad. I had really bad postpartum depression that went untreated for like a year because I was just so overwhelmed like all the time. I had no help cleaning. It was basically a man child. I had to clean up after him all day, and then I could start to get to cleaning the rest of the house. And then he would come home and be like you didn't do anything. And I'm like, I cleaned up after your ass. Like, and so like I was just overwhelmed, I had to do everything in the fucking house myself because he would say, oh, I'll take out the trash. A week goes by and we have extra trash and I'm having to haul it out when I'm in constant pain, trying to take care of a newborn, like all this other shit. And then our relationship got that much worse. Like, I begged and begged. I had been begging for like over a year to go to therapy. Like, let's go to therapy. Let's figure it out. We cannot communicate well. Like, let's go. And he at first he refused. He was like, no. Like, he would threaten divorce like all the time, including when I was pregnant. He would just be like, oh, like, I'm sick of you. I'm sick. I'm done with this. Like, the thought of being with you makes me physically sick. Just saying unnecessary, hurtful shit.
Yeah.
Like just unnecessary. And he would just say all this shit like all the time. Like, it wasn't just like, oh, once every couple months. Like, it'd be like damn near every other fucking week. And I was dealing with being like having chronic illness, having like a newborn, like having to take care of the entire household because it was me, him, our son, and then we had a bunch of dogs. I showed dogs in American Kennel Club. It was a hobby of mine. And I'd have no help with any of it. He would come home, want to play games, and that's it. And then anytime an interaction we would have, it would be incredibly, incredibly hurtful. He would just say unnecessary shit. He would start fights with me when I was going to work. He encouraged me to start dancing. Because I was like, oh, I thought about doing it. I don't know that. He encouraged me to start like being an exotic dancer. And so I did, and I loved it. But then he would start fights with me on right when I was trying to go to work. And like being like, oh, I'm fucking sick of you. I'm sick of this. I'm getting a divorce. Like, as I'm at work. Over text. A text message. Wow,
shits up the whole night right there.
Yeah, like and then if you're depressed and like dealing with that, you obviously can't make fucking money because you can't be like, hi. And so like I couldn't even build up a separate income like from the bills and everything because of that. It was almost like isolating. And so like I have like multiple friends at the clubs that would witness this shit and be like, girl, you need to leave him. You need to leave him. I'm like, but I love him. And I thought I had like gotten out of that out of my system, but I fell right back into the cycle. And so from there, it got worse and worse. He was just completely detached and emotionless and would just say hurtful shit and blame it all on me. And had no accountability for anything. Like at one point, he was like, well, you never get into my hobbies. So like, you never like my hobbies or whatever. I played video games with him all the time. He was like, you don't like my hobbies. You don't care about my interests. So I spent $400 on like gardening shit to make a garden with him. And he was like, oh, you only got it because you started to like it. Like, so I can't win. You don't want me to like your hobbies. And you don't want me to like, okay, word, cool, got it. And this is during this is kind of when my PTSD from previous situations and previous relationships really started to sit in. Because again, this is when I started really starting to realize, oh shit, that was abuse. Because me and my ex would have my son's dad would have really good, like positive moments of talking about things that I'd been through and like working through that. But then we'd have really, 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 really bad moments of him not caring about me, not caring about my kid, like would just like hurt. Like he claimed I was sleeping my life away because I would take a nap when he would come home for lunch. Single mom that's in pain all the time, wanting to take a fucking nap is not sleeping all day. God forbid I take a nap.
And I'm imagining in a club, you're not getting out of there at 10 or 11 o'clock. It's probably there to 4 a.m. or somewhere.
Yeah, close. It was like till 2 a.m. at that point. And so like I would work in nights, having to work during the fucking day, taking care of a household with no help. And it was just really, really exhausting and overwhelming. Well, it reached to a new degree of, I guess, detachment on his part, right? He would threaten me with divorce all the time. At one point, he did it over text at like 2 a.m. after I'd gotten, was I pregnant at this point? This might have been when I was pregnant. Yeah, I think it was when I was pregnant because I was still like big and my hair was, yeah. And so whenever I was using the bathroom at like 2 a.m. and he had texted me, I want a divorce. I'm filing on Monday. And I dropped my phone. I was upstairs. He was downstairs. I dropped my phone, just hysterically crying. As one does when gets a, hey, I'm getting a divorce. I'm filing on Monday, gets a text.
And he's downstairs?
Yeah, he was downstairs. I was upstairs. He could have just, I don't know, walked upstairs. Like it was over fucking text message. Like what the fuck? And so I understandably dropped my phone crying. And I'm like, I text him like, how could you fucking do this? Like this is unfair, like whatever. Like what we were working on things were getting better, like whatever. Because we'd have good moments, and then he would be, the second we have a bad moment, I'm done. I'm getting divorced. Yeah. But would never actually divorce me.
Right.
I ended up divorcing him. Just want to point that out. But ended up what happening was he at one point, so he would weaponize everything I did against me. A lot of narcissistic abusers try to convince the victim that they were the ones that were abusing the other person and not the other way around. So at one point my ex did try, like he actually successfully convinced me all of like for like maybe like 3 days that I was the one abusing him and not the other way around. And as a survivor of DV, like previously, I was freaking the hell out. You know, I was like, oh my God, what did I do? Like, what have I like possibly like done or whatever, racking my brain, and then being manipulated by him for like 3 years. At that point, it was I just kind of fell right back into it. And from that, like he at one point made me like text him that like confessing per se that I was the one that was abusing him and not the other way around. And I was like, I like at one point was like, I texted him that and I was like, oh my God, like, I'm so sorry, like this, that, and the third, like whatever, like just trying to like hang on to like the scraps, I guess, of our relationship at that point. Because at that point in my life, like I was so codependent on him. I couldn't see myself like without him, you know, like he got me that codependent on him.
Isn't it crazy how I hear a lot of these stories from different people, and even like not even on the podcast, just, you know, general relationships. It's crazy how people can have that manipulative control over people. Like it's crazy on both fronts, really. It's crazy that people are able to pull that off. And then it's crazy that people actually believe it. And I think you're just so wrapped up in it. You begin to like, you know, think it's true, even when it's really wasn't. Obviously in hindsight, you look now and say, you know, what was I thinking? But at the time you really believed it.
Yeah. I cut, like, it was really just really, really weird. Like what happens in like domestic violence relationships with like especially psychological, I mean, it contorts your sense of reality, like I mentioned before. It's just like your own perception of different things around you is just completely shifted.
Yeah.
Like it's just kind of one of those things. And it's really, really unfortunate because it's really, really fucked up. It's just like almost like a long game of manipulation.
Yeah.
And then since then, he's been like using that against me. He even told me shortly after that, he was like, be careful what you text me because I could use it against you later. And I was like, why would you use something against me later? Like I should have like realized in that moment, I was like, whoa, wait, what the fuck? You know what I mean? I was like, why would you ever use this against me? Like, I love you. Like, you love me. Like, why, you live, you learn.
Yeah.
So that was rough. One day after we got into a really bad fight, and he threw an entire bag, little cuties, threw an entire fucking bag of oranges, like at the like railing, and it broke it. And I was just like, what the fuck is your problem? Like, what the heck? He was like, well, you threw your phone that one time. I was like, I didn't throw my phone. I dropped it. Like it's a loud noise. It's fucking tile concrete. Like, you know what I mean? And from that day, like he would always be like, well, you threw that, so I can throw this. And I'm like, I didn't throw it though. Like it was just like weaponizing different things. Well, you have health issues and you can't take care of our kid, so I'm going to take him and get full custody because you're a neglectful piece of shit mom. I opened up to him about my postpartum depression, right? And it took me like almost a year to open up to him about my postpartum depression. And I finally did. And I was like, I told him, I was like, because my body, because I have chronic pain, I can't get around like the youngins, you know what I mean? I can't just be running around the house. And I told him, I was like, I feel like, my son's missing out. I really want to put him in daycare. Like, I really want to put him in daycare because I can't like do this. And my like body sucks. I'm in pain all the time. I can't give him the attention he needs for developing. I want him to put him in daycare. And he kept saying, no, we're not putting him in daycare. Daycare is horrible. Like they get sick. And I was like, for my mental health, I need him to be in daycare. Like I can't do this 24/7 all day working nights. Like he needs to go to daycare. And I told him, I was like, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like I'm like a neglectful mom just from like, just as you feel like when you have fucking postpartum depression, just because you feel it doesn't mean you actually are. Important distinction, because ever since then, he's been using the same exact wording against me. You're a terrible, shitty, neglectful mother. You're a horrible person and you don't deserve our fucking kid. Like at one point, he ripped my son out of my arms because I was crying because he told me he was going to try to take my son away from me. Because I was unstable because I had health issues. I wasn't a fucking, I don't want to say the term I was about to say, but like, I'm not like completely inhibited, right? Like I'm working at night. Like I'm working a physical job. Despite what it did to my pain, it made it worse, but eventually it helped me build strength back up in my legs. Right. So since I had chronic pain, I was in a chair. I wasn't like paralyzed or anything like that. I started getting atrophy because I was in so much pain all the time. I couldn't really walk. It was too painful. And so eventually they got the right medicine combo for me. And I started ketamine therapy for my chronic pain and my mental health. It helped me a lot. With that, right, I got out of my chair with ketamine therapy and I would go like once a month. And it helped me like build the strength back up in my legs because I would dance on stage for maybe two songs and then sit down and talk to customers the rest of the night. So over time, I started building up the strength again, right? Mm-hmm. So I was getting better at this point. And he was like, I'm going to take our kid away from you. You're a terrible person. And so because he said that, like I was holding my kid, like I was crying. I just wanted to hold my kid as a mother wants to hold, her son, like whatever. And because my son was an infant at the time, and he ripped him out of my arms, saying that saying that it would be harmful to our son's development to see me cry. I was calming down when he did this. I was on FaceTime with my friend. I was calming down. He ripped my son out of my arms, and I just lost it. I lost my shit. I was crying hysterically. He was like, "I'm gonna take away him." Like, "You're a fucking terrible person." Rips him out of my fucking arms, and so then I'm just hysterical. I majority of that relationship, I was crying. I would say, like at least 3 times a week, if not more. It was just a horrible situation for my mental health. And then from there, with the like manipulation, with the fucking threats, with everything, like whatever, it just kind of all kept boiling to a head. So from there, one of the girls from my club, she's a performer now because I am, but I'm not going to name her. for a lot of different reasons. But so she told me that she was getting abused. And I was like, please come stay with us. Like, me and my ex agreed. Oh, wait, let me back up a little. I'm going to backtrack. Really important detail. So my ketamine therapy, right? I was getting ketamine therapy for my chronic pain. It helped me out a lot. I was going like monthly. It really helped my mental health. Usually my ex brought me to appointments, but he couldn't one time. So my friend, my best friend at the time, brought me, and she had my kid in the car, and she was just waiting. It usually took like maybe an hour and a half. And from there, she told me she saw like ambulances pulling up, and she was like, that better not be for fucking her. She was like, I really hope that's not for her, but I got a feeling, you know what I mean? It was kind of funny looking back on it. So they had switched from injections to infusions. So I was getting injections of ketamine for my chronic pain, and it helped a lot. And then from there, they started infusions. Well, the pre-medication they give you that I've been getting for a year at this point was Ativan, also known as lorazepam.
Right.
Good old buddy lorazepam. The liquid version, for some fucking reason, I don't know what it is. Maybe I just have an incredibly low tolerance, because they did not OD me. They did not overdose. They didn't OD me, but I guess I had a really low tolerance for the generic liquid version of it.
Right.
And I don't know really what else to, I had it orally for no problem. I don't know what else it could have been. You know what I mean? And so the second it hit my system, the pre-medication, I was literally mid-sentence talking to the nurse, and I just went unresponsive. I was talking like, and then went, and I completely like blacked out. I stopped breathing. They had to call 911. They were like, I faintly remember them checking my pupils and trying to talk to me, and I just wasn't there. And then from there, so while all this, the background was going on, right, with them trying to get me like fucking breathing in, fix me up, like whatever, and the ambulance is coming, I briefly had the like life flash before your eyes moment, right? And so from there, I kind of realized I didn't have a good life. Like usually when people talk about, they're like, oh, it was so peaceful watching back my memories, all the good things. For me, it was all the bad things. It was actually like a really, really horrifying experience, because I was there one minute, and then the next, it was just reliving like abuse. And I don't know if this was definitely a fucking wake up call for me. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I completely changed my life. You know what I mean? Like how we were talking before. But so from there, I was just witnessing all of the trauma and stuff that I had been going through. And after that, I started having nightmares about my ex strangling me a lot from this experience. My PTSD was starting to, my therapist said, when you finally get into a safer spot, you start being able to process things. Mm-hmm. And then after this, I was really, really starting to process things, just because for a lot of different reasons. And so I'll get into the nightmares in a second, because this is a whole lot to talk about. But so from there, I relived everything, and I was coming in and out of consciousness, right? After I remember surging in the ambulance, just like surging forward, and then like passing out. And then from there, I briefly remember seeing the ambulance. I briefly remember bits and pieces of getting into the hospital, because I was in and out of consciousness so much. They had me on oxygen. They had me like on different things, and they were trying to give me different medications. Well, one of the times I was in and out of consciousness, my husband at the time, came and was sitting with me, and I kept reaching for him. And this was really, really my wake-up call to leave, because I kept reaching for him to hold his hand, because I was terrified. I didn't know what was going on. I thought it was a really bad trip from the ketamine. Like I thought, it must be a really, really bad fucking trip. I had like no strength in my body. I couldn't get up. I couldn't move. So I just assumed it was ketamine, because that's what it kind of does to you. You're just kind of like you can't, it's like a sedative. You can't fucking move. Right. And so from there, I remember reaching out to him and like asking to hold his hand. Right. And he told me that the thought of holding my hand would make him uncomfortable. I had literally like fucking flatlined and was coming in and out of consciousness trying to hold his hand. And he told me that the thought of holding my hand would make him uncomfortable, and he doesn't want to be uncomfortable. the person that I looked at like my entire world, which I really shouldn't have, but you know, as you do, like he was just like I was really, really codependent, you know, hindsight 2020, as the cycle goes. And I thought the world of him, like he was my entire, like, you know, and he wouldn't hold my hand on my deathbed, literally, like practically. Jesus. And from there, I just I was in and out of consciousness a lot, and I wasn't like mentally like really there, you know what I mean? Eventually he did hold my hand at one point, but it was like this, like literally like this. And those are like the two details that I bet my fucking life on, you know what I mean? And from there, right, I'm 2 days later after that happened, his unit got sent out of state for training. He could have gotten out of it with the emergency, like EFMP, like emergency shit. He could have gotten out of it. He said he needed the break away from us. So he left me incapacitated with my infant son by ourselves for 2 entire weeks. My friends had to come take care of us because at one point I was crawling across the floor to try to take care of my son. Like the vertigo was really bad. I was in and out of it. Like I wasn't really there. And my friends, who I think to this day took turns taking care of us for like 2 weeks. And after I like really started to like be like psychologically there, I kind of realized how fucked up that was. You know what I mean? Like it shouldn't have taken up to that for me to leave. But, you know, I did. So what ended up happening was, to rub salt on that, right? My friend at the time, horrible person, she tells me that she's getting abused or that she's scared for her life. She just got out of jail. And I was like, why were you in jail? And she tells me that she got arrested for changing the locks on her apartment because of her abusive act. She kicked him out. And I was like, in my head, that doesn't make sense why you would get arrested for changing the locks. But okay, but like, who am I to like question that, right? And so like me having my own history with it that I was processing, I was like, come stay with us. Like my ex agreed immediately after and this was right after he came back. So I had 2 weeks to just like recover and like mentally like figure out what the fuck just happened, you know? And so from that get-go, my friend comes stays with us. The second they see each other, they both immediately start flirting with each other in front of me. Like the whole, like the gig, right in front of me. And so from there, right, she works at the same strip club at the time that I worked at. And so from there, she stays with us for a week till she can get a restraining order on him. And these little bitty things start to add up because she criticizes me for not being vegan, that all my health problems would be fixed if I took these vegan mushroom supplements. And like, no. I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's not going to fix my heart conditions, but okay. Like I have premature ventricular contractions, atrial tachycardia, like an inappropriate sinus tachycardia. So like my heart's fucked up all the time. One arrhythmia goes, the other one starts. And so it's just like a ba-bump effect. I'm like, that's not going to fix that. No, or any of them. And so from there, it's just like little arguments like that. He all of a sudden, who is a meat lover, loves steak, loves hamburgers, full on barbecue man. You know what I mean? Yeah. Turns vegan. Oh, I've always wanted to try a vegan diet. Sure you have. Yeah, you want that stinky fucking vegan pussy? Sure, go for it. Like,
if a man gives up steak and you know all that, to me, there's something deeper to that. There's no way.
Yeah, exactly, right? He never once mentioned wanted to be vegan. All of a sudden wants to be vegan. And so from there, I take him to the side. I'm like, you need to stop flirting with her. Like, you need, like, otherwise she's not staying here. I said, I don't think it's intentional. I think you're mentally checked out of our relationship. And so you're like subconsciously like giggly flirting with her, but you need to stop or she's not staying here. I don't give a fuck. This is not going to happen in my house. And he was like, oh, I'll just be nice to her. Sure. And so from there, it's just all these little bitty things. She would tell me that he reminded her of her abusive acts. She was all while she was telling him the same shit about me. And so it was just like weird. So I went to one of her photo shoots. She came because she's a model in the area. She came to one of mine. She tried to take over my photo shoot for Suicide Girls that was going to be published. She tried to completely take it over. This is some important background information for what happens when shit hits the fan. But she was supposed to get like 4 or 5 photos as a thank you for watching my kid. She ends up trying to take over my photo shoot, doesn't watch my kid, instead takes nude selfies in front of the window. Yeah. My kid knocks over a nightstand because he's learning how to walk, right, at this point. And then from there, it's just kind of like I do my photo shoot, whatever. It's weird. We get into a little argument because I was venting about a situation with a different friend. As we do, you get together, you talk, you got to like, if something's bothering you, you talk to your friend about it. Right. And so she immediately jumped on, because my friend has chronic health issues, but a million times worse than mine. Her chronic fatigue is so bad that her body starts to shut down if she's not given stimulants. Like it's really, really bad. She tried to say, well, yeah, if she didn't drink all that caffeine, then she'd be fine. I was like, no. I was like, we're not going to talk. I was like, if we're going to talk shit, it's going to be about what they did to us, not for their disability or what you think, like your perception of it are. Yeah. I was like, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to stop. She wouldn't. And I was like, dude, like I also have chronic fatigue, not that bad, but like I've lived it. Like you cannot try to talk on this shit. You don't have it. She was like, well, my cousin's uncle's brother is a neurologist and his wife tries to do the same shit. And he gets so frustrated. I'm like, I don't care. Like I like, you're not living with it. So you don't get to speak on it. And then she doesn't stop. So I yelled at her. I was like, you need to fucking drop it right now. Like right the fuck now. I try to be polite. Like, no. And then she goes like on her little phone. Clicking, clacking her little nails. Interesting. Like literally. And I was like, what is it? What is it that you're just dying to tell me? And she's like, well, this study says it, and I'm telling you. And I told her, I was like, I don't care. You don't live with it. You don't get to talk shit about how other people deal with it. Yeah. We're not going to do that. And so she gets really, really quiet. I make her put my gas barefoot. Well, I'd give her my Crocs, but still. And from there, like tension's weird. Like, you know how like narcissists, if you like kind of start to see through it, they kind of change. You know what I mean? Like that facade drops. Hers dropped right in front of me. So the next day was her court case. I'd bring her to it, and I'm having a flare up, right? Over the so this was Tuesday. Over the week, Monday was a photo shoot. Over the weekend, I drove to like Oklahoma to pick up my dog for my mom because he was supposed to get stationed in Korea. He didn't. So I come back and they're like flirty, extra giggly. She told me she didn't interact with him the entire time. He mentions a movie that they watched together, and like in front of me, and I'm like, things are starting to like look really, really sus with them too, right? And so at the court case, court hearing, I'm like in the car. She sees me. She starts busting out laughing. She was like, the second he saw me, he started busting out crying like a little bitch. And I was like, ooh, like she's maniacally laughing. He's such a fucking little bitch. And I'm like, who the fuck did I just let in my house? Because she was criticizing me constantly fucking shaming me for not being fucking vegan. And so I was venting to my ex about it this entire time, which is important context. So that Tuesday, right? He takes my car and doesn't come home. So like after she leaves, he's barely home. So I'm obviously like, I'm not fucking stupid. He keeps taking my car, and I kept telling him, hey, like I need that car for groceries. Like in case me or my kid need to go to the hospital. Again, literally just died weeks before. Right. And so I was like, hey, like you're taking my car. I need access to my car. He's like, well, if you don't let me use my car, then I'm not paying rent because I need it to get to base. So if you don't like, let me take the car to go do that, then I'm not contributing towards bills. And I'm like, okay, cool. Financial abuse. Got it. Word. Okay. And so and this has been a constant thing with him and like taking my cars. Like he never had a car. His car broke, or no, actually it got repossessed. His car was repossessed. So I let him use my extra car and I bought a car, right? My cars, several times in this relationship, he's tried to be like, well, if you don't let me use your car, then I'm not paying bills. I don't have to under military regulation because you're taking me away from my being able to get to work. And I was like, Uber. Or get a friend to come pick you up. Like I need access to my car because the issue is he wasn't coming home was the problem. Like he was just taking it and like being gone for days.
When you have a kid, like if something happened, like what do you know?
My son had a hole in his heart. I had just died weeks before.
He had a VSD?
Yes, VSD, exactly.
I had that.
Yeah. And so
Yeah.
you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, I mean, I don't know the extent, like they knew about it from birth. It never really bothered me throughout my life. Like I played sports, drank, smoked a little bit, you know, have done all the stuff teenagers do. And I'm a senior in high school. I'm going every 4 years to get it checked. And they're like, ooh. And I'm like, you know, what does that mean? And I guess they thought it was like very, very small.
Mm-hmm.
Turns out it was like a flap had gotten sucked over the hole. The hole was bigger than what they thought, but it could only see what was not covered by the flap. So my senior year in high school, they actually done a surgery. I've got a scar. I don't know if you can tell. I got
Okay.
um,
Mm-hmm.
they done it and repaired it when I was a senior in high school. I don't feel no different now than when I did before, but obviously, like for me, it was better to get it done under my mom's insurance. It wasn't, you know, easy
Yeah.
recovery. I was 18. So I got a lot of that sympathy ass you were talking about earlier. I'm like, you know, I
Yeah.
might not be here in a couple months. It's possible.
You're
Yeah.
right.
And then had to get him like, you know, I made it for you. I was thinking of you the whole time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I know what that is. That's I've never met too many people with that.
Yeah. And so my son's was so large that basically his heart was having to beat extra hard. So
Right.
he stayed really, really small. He was incredibly small my entire pregnancy.
Mm-hmm.
Important background information. My son has been in the same growth percentile his entire life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Growing steady rate, whatever. So he's not coming home, right? And so I keep telling him I need buy groceries, whatever. He's just like, order Instacart. I'm like, I don't have money for that. Too bad. Like, and I'm like, what if we have to go to the hospital? He's like, figure it out. Call 911. I was like, word, got it. Cool. Dad of the year. And so from there, so that was Tuesday. All these little arguments. Anytime we would see each other, he would just lash out at me. You're a horrible person. You're a piece of shit. You're a terrible mom. You're a fucking neglectful mother. That's when he really started laying into the postpartum depression that I had confided into him a couple months before. He really started fucking using all the words in it. And with that, it was just, it got really, really bad. And my birthday was coming up, right? So I asked him at one point that in that week that I asked him, I was like, my birthday's coming up. What should I do for my birthday? One of my friends is like inviting me to go to Vegas. Like, I don't know though, because I've been the sole caretaker of our kid his entire life. And so he said, I don't give a shit what you do for your fucking birthday. You need to go get fucked for your birthday, because then at least you can stutter. I don't give a shit what you do for your birthday. You need to at least go get fucked though, so that you'd be easier to live with. And I was like, my husband, whom I loved, was like, you need to go get fucked for your fucking birthday, because then at least you'd be easier to live with. And I was like, you can't talk to me that way. Because at this point, I really started had processed some shit. And I was like, okay, this is fucked up. I was like, you can't talk to me that way. Like, that's fucking rude. Like, it caught me so off guard, because I still remember his voice. You need to go get fucked for your birthday, because then at least you'd be easier to live with. And at this point, I started crying, understandably so. Start crying. I'm like, you can't talk to me that way. Like, that's not okay. And he was like, I don't give a shit. You're a fucking shitty ass, neglectful ass fucking mother. This and the third. You deserve to have your kid taken away from you. You piece of shit. You sleep your entire fucking life away. You slept our entire son's life away. Again, I took naps, but I digress. The entire fucking thing, right? And so I get my son out of the car and I go inside and I'm holding him and I'm crying. This was a different instance of the one before that I mentioned. Mm-hmm. And I'm crying hysterical. I'm just kind of panic, right? Like, I'm in fight or fucking flight. I'm holding my son to my chest, just rocking him back and forth. He's happy he doesn't know what's going on. He was so young. And from there, I'm in my room. He was learning how to walk. He was practicing walking on the bed frame, holding onto it and walking. And I'm crying. I'm calming down. I'm just like, okay, cool. Yeah, good job. Yeah, we're walking. Yeah, having fun with my son. My ex barges in, because we're sleeping in different rooms at this point. He barges in on the phone, and he fucking rips Callum away from me again. And he's on the phone. He goes, and I'm hysterical at this point, because I'm like, what the fuck? You just fucking I can't just leave me alone type shit. And he just saying that I'm a neglectful mom, that my kid doesn't need to be around me when I'm crying, this and the third. I'm like, well, maybe if you didn't make me cry, I wouldn't be fucking crying. But I digress. And so from there, it was just really it got really, really bad. Like anytime he would come home, we'd be fucking arguing. He'd like lash out at me and I'd just be like, I'm just trying to survive, dude. I'm just trying to tell you not to treat me this way. And you're fucking like, so cool. And then at this point I was like, I'm fucking done. Like I'm checked out. Like I'm done. Like enough is a fucking enough. Like whatever. Again, he was never home. So that Friday I had brief access to my car. I put an AirTag in it. In my own car that I own, that I'm sole owner of, put an AirTag in my car. And he said he was going to go get Excedrin for me because I'd been crying all week and I had a fucking migraine. I had no way to get fucking Excedrin. And him, like a tall boy, a beer, whatever. He's gone 4 hours. The gas station was less than a mile from our house. He's gone 4 hours. I checked the fucking AirTag. Guess whose house he's at? Her fucking house. At that point, I'm livid. The car seat's in the car. He never once left the car seat with me so I could Uber anywhere. He just took the entire fucking car. It pinged off directly at her address. I tried calling them. I shouldn't have called them both. I should have just like got one of my friends to come and bring me, but I was pissed. I was livid at this point. I went from hysterical to fuck no, like realizing everything that's been going on, right? I called them both, fucking whatever. My friend comes over. She watches my kids so that I can fucking get in her car and like fucking take off. And by the time I'm finally on the road, like they start moving. It starts moving again. The fucking AirTag. And so like, cause I even tried making up an excuse. I was like, there's a fucking man beating on the door. Like I'm scared. Like I need you to come home. Like you need to come home. Like I'm really scared. And he was like, call 911. Call the cops.
Right.
I was like, word, got it, cool. That of the year. Like me, like recovering from almost fucking dying, like from literally dying and coming back to and having our infant son at our house. But cool. Glad I can't count on you. So from there, you know, he eventually like he answers the phone and he's like, I'm in like Black Forest, a different part of like Colorado than he was at. And I was like, really? Eventually it escalates and he's like, I've been suspecting you've been tracking me for a while. Like, I'm like, I literally just put it in today, but okay. I was like, he was like, it's an invasion of privacy. I can't believe you violated my privacy this way. By me putting an AirTag in my own car that I solely own is apparently a violation of privacy. So I told him and I went off on him. I was like, this is my car. Like, you can't keep taking it. I was like, you need to return my car. I don't care where you go, but you need to return my car tonight, like within the next hour, or I'm calling the police. And he goes to her house. He's like, I'm going to go show her all the text messages you texted me. Because I was venting to him about her treating me like shit for not being fucking vegan and trying to push holistic crap on me when I need medication for my heart and like other issues to survive. And I'm going to show her all that you've done. And surprise, surprise, he's like immediately there. Wow, crazy. And from there, she goes ballistic. She like, cause she had already dropped that guard with me and like would even look at me like she just fucking could not, like the most disdainful look you can imagine. Right. She was already looking at me with. And so from there, she goes ape shit. This is Friday. She starts like blowing up her Instagram story, trying to like literally saying all this like shit that's not true. Claiming that I was abusing my ex, that I was abusing my son, that I was neglecting my son to the point that he was malnourished and like small to the point it stunted his growth. Okay, let's all use logic for a second. I was married and lived with my husband up until this moment. So if I neglected my kid to the point of stunted growth, so did he. Yeah. Like, this isn't doing what you think it's doing. And so she just like fucking like on. She abuses and neglects her dogs. Like, all because I crate train my dogs. Oh no, I crate train my dogs. I'm a responsible dog owner. I don't let my dogs roam when I'm not home. Meanwhile, she ties hers to a literal stripper pole because it destroys everything. But you know, and so like it was like an entire fucking ordeal. And she slandered the hell out of me, or maybe it's libel. It's called, I don't give a fuck. And then she did the photographer dirty that did that photo shoot that she tried to take over. She, like you said, she's supposed to get like 4 or 5 photos as a thank you. After she starts doing all this, the photographer understandably does not do it. Like, to begin with, like, he was working with me, not her. She tried to take over my shoot, and she expected 60 edited images for free. Because that's what, like, Suicide Girl photo sets are like 50 to 60 images. Yeah. And, like, and so she tries to take, she's like, essentially being like, oh, I can't believe I shot a Suicide Girls photo shoot. Like she said that right before I started. And so that's why implying like she expected all of those, which is actually insane.
That's a lot of work for a photographer to edit 60 foot for free. That's fucking insane.
Yeah. And so like from there, because she's like, yeah, I have a sneak peek of my photos after she tries to slander me online. And he's like, you're not fucking getting shit. Like the fuck? After all that, like I don't want to be fucking associated with that. Like whatever. And so he sends her a video of him deleting all of her images. Important information for later. She knows they're gone. She never gets them. So she slanders him for not giving her photos that she knows are deleted. Right. And so she's like tries to destroy them online and then whatever. She's trying to done it multiple times. The more successful I've gotten in my current career path. And it's going to keep happening. And she's just going to out herself after this. I already know. But like from there, it gets worse. So that's that Friday. That Saturday, she's literally posting selfies with all this information of, oh, she's abusing her ex. It's scary, y'all. Like with like pictures like of her like this in the background.
I mean, you look like you would probably just be beating up, men in service. I mean, I just got to tell you, you look like you're just probably very physically imposing and abusive.
Yeah. Well, now I am. At that point, I wasn't. So like I've grown a lot since then because of it, which I'm very thankful for. I love my life now. But yeah, I wanted to beat her ass. Yeah. There was like at the point you bring my kid into it, like you say shit all you want about me, but you're trying to just claim that I'm abusing and neglecting my kid. People would message her, oh my God, that's so horrible. And she'd screenshot it and post it on her story, which is like, tell me you're a narcissist without telling me you're a narcissist.
Or a fucking kid.
No, literally. She's 23 years old acting like this. She destroyed all of her exes. So during all this, when she's posting about me, people reach out to me. Obviously, I have screenshots of everything, but like they reach out to me, right? So they're like, hey, like, so this is actually what our experience is with her. So it turns out she got arrested because she destroyed all of her ex's shit. She drew dicks on everything. She fucking put glitter in shit. She fucking cut up shit. Turns out she got arrested for that, right? Destruction of property. But so the second she found out it was a felony, she tried to pin it on the two girls that didn't know each other, that were just there to help her bag everything up for her ex. And she was like, oh, they did it. They did it. I didn't do it. That was them. So I'm like, okay, we're like, who is this person? You know what I mean? And so from there, they get me in touch with her ex, who's trans. So the entire ordeal started because she outed him as trans on Facebook, posted his dead name, posted his picture pre-transition, and was like, he's a horrible person. And his family defended him. Thankfully, that never happens. And she texted, I have text messages. She texted him saying, your family disrespected me for the last time. You want to see crazy? I'll show you crazy, bitch. And destroyed all of his shit. And that's how she got arrested. And so from there, me and him get in contact. It was like either it was Memorial or Labor Day something weekend, right? And so they fucking, so there was a 4-day weekend for a holiday, like federal holiday. He ends up bringing me to the court office to get a restraining order on her because she's telling people essentially to steal the dogs out of my yard. She posted screenshots of people saying to call CPS. And then later that night, posted a selfie like with a stuffed animal. I'm trying to grab literally, like with a stuffed animal. Like, just called CPS on someone. Like, okay, like, first of all, but like, like just the background images of it all are just so telling. It was actually wild. And then from there, right, so I go to the court office and I try to file a restraining order against her because I don't want her anywhere near my property. I was scared she's trying to steal my dogs out of my yard when I let them out to play. And since my life wasn't in danger, they didn't grant it. It turns out whatever you put on that document is whatever yes, you get a restraining order. No, you don't get a restraining order. Is whatever you put on. You don't have to give any evidence, just whatever you put on there. I didn't lie. I have integrity. I have accountability. I didn't fucking lie. Right. And so from there, she tried to get one. We ran into them at the courthouse. Me and her ex ran into her and my ex at the court. Yeah, it was.
Jerry.
Well, they didn't know who I was with because he had his hood up. But then they saw him take his hood off when I was waiting to go in the building, and she like whipped around. I could see her because they were watching us and I was watching them. She whipped around. That's my ex, like hitting his arm, like whatever. And so that was really awkward, but you know, I saw him filling out paperwork. I thought it was for divorce. I'm assuming it was for divorce. I didn't have the funds to like divorce him or like to file the thing. So I just assumed he's filing for divorce. I was like, cool. So she tried to get a restraining order on me, and so did he. So again, they believe whatever you put on that paper, right? He tried to claim that I chased him around with a knife that Friday when he was never home. At 9 p.m., when I have a screenshot at 9 p.m. of him at her house, trying to say that I chased him around with a knife. I tried to kill him. And so and he tries to get emergency custody of my kid, which is denied. And then he has me served anyway. So he knows I have nowhere to go and that I have my kid, like solely been taken care of with nowhere to go. I'm from Louisiana. I ain't from around here.
Yeah.
And so I have no family here. I have some friends, but like whatever. So I was trying to get a lawyer, because my grandmother had passed away recently. So I was the sole inheritor of her shit because my dad was dead. And so, I had some money thankfully, but it wasn't like I was made of it. Right. And so from there, I go to a dog show my birthday weekend. I show my dog Risky. He's an AKC champion. And that's what I do for myself for my birthday, dealing with all of this. And so I come back and I'm like cleaning the house, like whatever. And CPS shows up at my door almost immediately. And I was like, like I knew I had a heads up, but I was really hoping, you know what I mean? Like I was really hoping they weren't. And so I was horrified because I had, you hear stories about CPS of them taking away kids that are perfectly healthy and happy.
Yeah.
And I was like feeding my son lunch and we were up like whatever. And the lady, thank God it was this lady. It could have gone a different way if it wasn't. And so the lady's like, my dogs are barking because somebody's at our house. And so they're like weirded out. Like she's weirded out. And so she's like, can I talk to you like outside for a second? I'm like, sure. She got reports saying that I was doing coke and heroin and like leaving my kid like in front of my kid and leaving my kid like basically to die, like not taking care of him. Okay. So if you're going to make a lie, make it believable. 3 heart conditions, an autoimmune disease, like fucking chronic pain. If you're going to say I do something, make it believable, because I would my heart would like burst if I was given coke. I have an unnaturally high heart rate. Like, none of it made sense. And I was like,
isn't that combination what they referred to as speedballing, which I think allegedly killed like Chris Farley and River Phoenix and yeah.
I don't know nothing about that.
I think doing that together, if I'm not mistaken, I could be wrong, but I think doing that together is what's called a speedball. And that's what River Phoenix took when he OD'd at the Viper Room. I forgot what year that was. Allegedly, that's also what Chris Farley, the comedian, did from Tommy Boy and all the movies, in the mid 90s. Which is like, it's a very dangerous fucking combination to do both of those hard drugs at one time. Cause it's like up and a down. It's just, there's something about the combination that's really fucking dangerous.
Yeah. So she was claiming that, right? And the like DHS is technically called worker. She was like, she kind of like, I tell her everything that's going on. So my ex had just abandoned my car. After like this had been 2 weeks of like fucking court case, like not even court case, because it hadn't gotten to that point yet, but I didn't even know about it at this point. But it had been going on for like 2 weeks, about 2 weeks, the whole with the girl and with him and me dealing with all this. He was gone, he had my car, all this took about 2 weeks time span. And he dumped it in a random parking lot, sent my friend like the iPhone pin thing of where it was, and took a picture of where the key was and just left it. Like no words. And she was like, I can't go get her car. Like I'm at work. Like I can't just drop everything and go get it. And he said, well, her new tranny friend should be able to help her out. I was like, okay. She didn't show me that part. I love my friend very, very much because she knows me very, very well. She didn't show me that part until much, much later, the training comment. Mm-hmm. And I was like, fucking kidding me when I found out. But I was like, thank you for not telling me, because I probably would have gone to jail, but you know. And so from there, one of our other friends ends up, that I barely knew at the time, like I wasn't really close with her, from the same club, who also had issues with this girl, like her and her boyfriend drop everything and go get my car, fill it up with gas because it was literally empty, and then brings it back and for me. And I'm like, thank you all so much, like whatever. They helped me clean it out because they completely wrecked my car. They drew dicks on the fucking like in the dirt on the back. They put a bunch of vegan trash all over my car and then try to claim it was there already when I'm not. No one, like I said, no one was vegan in my household until she came into my household. Right. I'm Cajun. Like, we turn roadkill into fucking sausage. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, no, I'm not fucking vegan. And so, like, no, it's not my fucking shit. And so, like,
a lot of stuff in that gumbo there.
Yeah, a lot of stuff. A little squirrel, a little skunk. Like, what's that smell? Oh, it smells kind of good. Like, and so, like, from there, the DHS worker actually gave me the heads up about the restraining orders because I didn't know. I thought she was trying to get one on me and he was filing for divorce. So what ended up happening was she, because I told her everything that was going on, and she was like, look, my baby daddy tried to do the same thing to me. Like, it's so, like, it'll be okay. Like, I'm not telling you to leave the state. I'm not telling you to leave the state, but maybe you should try leaving. Like, but that's what I did, kind of thing, she told me. And so from there, we basically just go DHS. Okay, I'm good. So the cardiologist, we were taking my son to I had to take my son to the cardiologist for a wellness just checkup on his heart, like yearly. And she was like, I'm not gonna, like, I don't want to keep you because you have to take your son to the doctor, but like, she was like, but like, I think the restraining order is regarding to him, because she mentioned it. And I was like, oh yeah, she tried to get one on me. But I didn't get served, but I was going to go to the courthouse, like the sheriff's office, to get served so I can just get it over with. And she was like, don't do that. She's like, don't, just hold off on that. Let me get some clarification on it, because I think it's him trying to get a restraining order on you. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, my son's dad tried to do this, and you know, I'm not telling you to leave the state before you get served, but that's what I did, type thing. And so I was like, okay, word. She was like, but let me double check. Don't go to a police station. Like, don't try to get served yet, because I don't know who it's about. And so I take my son to the doctor. As I'm pulling into the parking lot, she calls me and I'm like, hello. And she's like, okay, you're going to lay low for the next like couple days until you can get your hands on a lawyer, because he's trying to get you and your son kicked out of the house. He could have gone to the barracks. If he was claiming that I chased him around with a knife on a night he was never home, if he was truly in danger, he could have gone to the barracks. Right. The unit has to like provide that shit, right? But he did it. Instead, he opted to have me and my son removed from the home with nowhere to go. And so I ended up getting served after I got back from, I'm a little all over the place, I know. I immediately got served after I got back from the like dog show that weekend. And it was June 7th. I remember it's my friend's birthday that I went to the house of. And I was like, it was June 7th that me and my son's world kind of got turned upside down for a while. At that point, I was already kind of living in paranoia that he was going to try to show up and rip my son out of my arms again. Right. You know, like I was pacing the fucking house, like going from the back window to the front window, like just all day, literally going back and forth, like having like, I don't want to say a nervous breakdown, because that really wasn't. It was just, I was extremely paranoid he was going to show up, or they were going to show up. And so from there, I had to load up. I was supposed to only have 15 minutes. I was given an hour by the police officers. There were literally like 6'6", and the other one's 6'2". Like, it was fucking massive, like 2 guys. And I'm just like, I'm just trying to take out the trash. And so from there, I get served. I load up all 5 dogs we had at the time. My parrot, I had a cockatoo that my mom has now, but like, I had we loaded everybody up in my infant at the time son. He was like in between toddler and infant, that weird, I don't know what to call stage.
Yeah.
But from there, I was hysterical. I lost my goddamn mind. I had nowhere to go. And I had everyone with me. You know what I mean? Thank God I have a fucking SUV, because had I not, I don't know what I would have done. I wasn't going to leave them at the house because she was trying to get my dogs taken away from me. I couldn't trust anyone, and with show dogs, they have to be returned to their breeder. If for any reason, well-bred dogs, you are under contract, you have to return to the breeder. I did not trust them to do that. So I went to my friend's house hysterical. She was like, it's okay. We're going to figure it out. And so I got most of my dogs back to their breeders, 3 of them. My mom took my parrot, my dachshund, she drove up and took them for me. And then it was just me, my collie, my collie that I mentioned that went to the dog show with, he's my task trained service dog. So since I do have health issues and whatnot, he picks up stuff that I drop. He helps with my heart rate and everything. And so it was very important he stayed with me, type thing. And so I'm living in hotels for about 2 months. Just hysterical. My entire world and everything I knew crashed down around me, and this was all within a month of dying. And so I was processing that. I was processing from that experience, having to relive all this trauma. I was processing my own PTSD that I was realizing I had. And then just dealing with from there, that's when the nightmares I mentioned before started. And so I would wake up just clawing at my throat, just hysterical, just I would just start screaming and waking, clawing at my throat. And then from there, because I just imagined that first ex just strangling me all over again. And that got worse and worse type thing as this was all going on. Eventually I got my own place in Denver. I moved as far away as I fucking could away from him. I wasn't allowed at the house. I couldn't get my things. So I moved into my apartment with nothing and nowhere to go. And with all the little things that I did have, I was supposed to be able to have access to my house that weekend. But he said, no, I'm going to be there, so you have to wait. So with the whole restraining order thing, I had a lawyer at this point. It got she said to opt to extend it because he had no evidence submitted for a permanent one. She proposed that and he agreed to it. It got extended for 3 months to get through at least mediation in her eyes. And from there, at least he won't be able to contact me like that either. And so she opted for that. And she said with the stipulation of if there's no violations, it gets dropped with prejudice. So he can't try to do the same shit to me again.
Right.
Yeah. And so I was like, absolutely, give me the fuck away from him. So we didn't have a parenting agreement. He kept demanding my kid for an unprecedented amount of time. I was like, no, we're going to have a custody agreement to make sure I get him, because I wasn't stupid. I was living in hotels. If I gave him my kid, I wasn't going to get him back. You know what I mean? And so from there, I moved to Denver. I'm like, I'm not even going to risk him being able to be in the same place as me. Yeah. I'm not putting that risk out. I'm just not doing it. And then him try to claim that I'm stalking him when I'm not. So I moved far as fuck away from him as I could to Denver with my kid. He didn't know what the fuck was going on. I was hysterical. And it was just I had a complete, another mental break, just complete. I was just losing my goddamn mind in those hotels. I was just pacing it, looking at the peephole, looking at the window over and over and over and over, just constantly living in the fear that he was going to show up and try to take my son away from me. He's all I had at that point. All we had was each other. And, it was one of the scariest fucking things that have ever happened to me. I was just living in constant paranoia and dealing with so much at once, from dealing with a man that wouldn't even hold my hand on my fucking deathbed, to being homeless, with a small child, with nowhere to go, because if I left the state and I didn't show up, I could get whatever charges or whatever, when I'm I didn't do anything wrong to begin with. It's actually, apparently my lawyer said it's actually very common for narcissistic abusers to try to utilize and weaponize the court system against their victims. And so from there, it was just kind of a blur. So about 6 months later, right, from after dealing with all of that, going through that whole process, things are starting to settle down for me. So it was about May that we like had officially separated. That whole instance with that girl happened like late May, early June, like with her and my ex. And so here we're on Christmas, the night of Christmas. It was 11 o'clock p.m. on Christmas night. Can't even, I had my kid for the holiday, you know? And then my friends who were like, slandered online, so they fucking reached out to me that night. They're like, "Hey, she's stirring this up again on Christmas." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And so I guess she did a photo shoot at the same location that she came accompanied with me to my photo shoot for Suicide Girls. It was a popular hotel in the area or in Victor, Colorado called the Monarch, the Black Monarch. And she did another photo shoot in the same room and I guess remembered, oh, I never got those photos back. This is want to talk about a dumb bitch. So she posts like a really, really long, I'm talking like super, super long paragraph, like review on the photographer and his wife's like page. They helped me out a lot whenever I was homeless with my kid. They like sent me screenshots for court. They helped me out like with my kid if I needed anything. They were just there to cry on, right? Great people. Both talented tattoo artists. Shout out to Carl and Addie. Love y'all. Go get tattooed by them. But they were there for me like throughout the entirety of it. And so like, so she never got the photos, right? Because he sent her a video of him deleting them because understandably so. On Christmas, the night of Christmas, she leaves them a really, really, really bad review and then goes to her Instagram again, trying to be like, well, my friend got her photos back and I didn't. So clearly there's some kind of bias against me. She called me her fucking friend. She called me her friend. I was like, you don't get to, and I went and I posted briefly in my story. I was like, you don't get to cherry pick details when it benefits you. Yeah. You do not get to pick and choose what parts of the story to utilize for your benefit. That's fucked up. Get my fucking name out of your mouth. Leave us alone type shit. And so she makes an Instagram reel, 2 Instagram reels, 5 minutes apart. I'm kidding you not. I watched them both get uploaded. They were 5 minutes apart, but she changed her hair and clothes in the second one to make it look like it was a long-term update. Because in the first Instagram, yeah, I know. I cannot make this shit up. In the first reel, right? So she goes, I thought after 6 months he'd do the right thing and give me my photos that I'm in, that are of me after 6 months. But he hasn't given them to me and he's blocked me. So I need all of you to go harass him for the photos back that are of me, that I'm in, that I deserve to have. He deleted them. She knows he deleted them. She's just stirring the fucking pot, like at this point, right? And so, and that's when I'm like, don't call me your friend. Don't call me all this. Like, no, absolutely. You convinced my ex to get a restraining order on me. You called CPS on me. Don't call me your fucking friend. You know, and like trying to get my fucking kid taken away from me didn't work. The DHS report was unfounded because of course it would be, right? And then from there, so on Christmas, I can't believe she did this shit on Christmas. So with the first Instagram reel, that was what that was. Then she posts one not even like 5 minutes later with different clothes, different hair. And she's like, so update on the Carl Ferrier situation. Love you, Carl. Love you, Addie. Shout out. Go get tattooed by them because I just said their name. But so I'll just redo that one part. So update on the Carl situation. I'm going to just not say Carl. I feel like I already did, huh?
I think you did.
Yeah. Shout out to them anyways. But okay, I'll just redo that one part. Sorry about that. I'm all over the place this afternoon. So update on that Carl situation. So it turns out he didn't give me my photos that I'm in because he supported a child abuser. She flat out calls me a child abuser, right? I've literally cut and dried defamation case, and you better believe I'm doing something with that. And so she goes,
record, baby, screen record.
Literally, yeah. And so I have that. And so she's like, so update on the Carl situation. I keep accidentally saying that. Oh well. So update on that situation. So it turns out she was supporting a child abuser, and Because he's supporting a child abuser. This is the poor baby that I had to save. I had to testify in court for this poor baby for child abuse and post a video of my son eating on a page, Instagram page, that she uses to promote her porn and her like nude shoots and everything.
Yeah, that might have would have justified a roll up, a pull up.
Mm-hmm. It does. It does. And it's only a matter of time before I run into again. And no sure she's going to see this. It's only a matter of time before I run into her again. And so when there's a random video of me beating a bitch's ass, y'all know what's going on. There's not. I'm never going to do that. I love my kid. I would never risk anything in that situation. But it definitely called for it.
Oh, 100%. Wow. I can't believe she would go to that level, man.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I get in the heat of the moment. People say things, people do things, but like, I would never go so far. I don't care what problem I have with anybody, whatever they've done to me, I'm going to handle that like, whatever the situation. I'm not going to bring somebody's kid into it. Like,
Yeah,
that's just,
especially as a sex worker.
off limits. Yeah.
I haven't even like nobody knows I have a kid up until now, and I'm fine with this coming out. Like this is my story,
right.
And my kid's a big part of my story. But you cannot post your pictures of your kids anywhere as a sex worker, anywhere.
Like, it's not.
Yeah, they get stolen. They end up stolen. Is the problem.
I mean, you would think you would have a page for that, which makes sense. You would have a page dedicated for that because, in all, I guess things honestly, like I've talked to people where, like, even if they're in a relationship, like they don't post their significant. They have to appear available, single to the public. You know what I'm saying? To if somebody knows they're taken, it might lose the appeal of them wanting to talk to them or chat them or subscribe to them or whatever they're doing. So you would want something totally separate. And a lot of people, and I'm sure you probably go by a different name other than this. They have a name for their regular, page or whatever. And then they have their, the name they go by in the industry.
I have those too. Like, don't get me wrong. It's just like, wow, like that was actually like next level. And this is the second time she posted them. So the first time was during it initially when she was trying to drag my ass through the mud.
Right.
This is the second time, right? And so another issue like within it, right? She tried to post everything. She took pictures of like the dirty ass garage in our dirty ass house because again, I was removed from the house. I couldn't be there. It's not my fault. They trashed it and took pictures of it. And then to begin with, I was living with a man child who didn't know how to clean up after himself or literally take the trash out. So as like I was at one point in our relationship where I was wheelchair bound, right? Mm-hmm. Like not that long ago, maybe like over a year and a half, 2 years ago. And so like from that, I had to like, and I still had to do everything myself. And so she took pictures of the house after I was kicked out of it and was like, oh, look at her dirty house, as if me and my ex didn't live together. Like we lived together, we took care of our kid together, yet I'm a child, only me is a child abuser and neglector and has a dirty ass house. Yeah. That's funny. Like none of this isn't doing what you think it's doing. It doesn't make sense. And anyone with half a brain cell can see it. But like you still have people like harassing me. Then they try to be like, oh, she left her kid alone in a car. She said she's going to leave her kid like in a hot car. I told a photographer that I'd have my kid with him, but he was an infant, car seat that is removable, like like you know how like they have a little thing that goes over. I could carry it. You know what I mean? My kid would be in the car seat 2 feet away from me. Yeah. Like not in a locked fucking not in a fucking car to begin with. It was an outdoor photo shoot. And then so that photographer sent her that because he has a thing for her. And she was like, oh my God, see, she'd leave her kid in a car seat. Car seat, bring the car seat with me. I know, hard concept to use a brain a little bit, but like, it's like, what the fuck? And so with all of that, like they tried to ruin my name, my reputation, like my story, my own history with domestic violence. Like it's just actually like baffling. Like I just want to be left alone and they're going to keep doing this. Like I've been talking to Ivan about it. He's been the one giving me advice on how to handle it. And he even said, he was like, the more successful you get, the more mad they're going to be about it. And then the more that they're going to keep posting and posting and posting, which is one of the many reasons why I wanted to get all of this out, because I'm just sick of it. It's been over a year. Like, let's use our brains. Let's grow up a little bit. I know it's a hard concept for her, but like, let's put on our big girl pants and go to work, because it was just like one of those things.
Well, hopefully this will kind of clear the air on anything and give people an insight to your entire story.
Yeah, like it's been a really, really, really long, hard road, and I'm over it. I got my new life. I have a beautiful apartment. I have my second one. I moved on my own, like again into a nice one as well. And so I've been on my own for over a year now, and I love it. I couldn't. It's crazy because I couldn't imagine myself without him. And now that I'm gone, like I've left and I'm on my own, it's like, man, I really don't want to live with somebody again. You know, if I want to eat ramen noodles 7 nights in a row, I can. So when that restraining order finally lifted, I was trying to get a parenting agreement set up. He kept denying it over and over and over and over again, saying, no, I want him for a week on, week off. I'm like, I'm not agreeing to that for an 18-month-old. I'm not doing it. You know, like that's not humane. That's not okay for a small child. And it was just back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. He wouldn't agree. We're like, okay, you get him on weekends, you work during the week. This makes sense. And he kept saying, no, I want him on 4-day weekends too. And I was like, I'm not agreeing to random 4-day weekends that are not scheduled and just literally randomized and you find out a couple days beforehand. Like, I'm not agreeing to that. And you know, like whatever. And so we got our temporary one in place. He started getting him in October after it lifted. Well, he had him for 2 weekends last year after we split. So we separated in May. Right? May. And then all the way to October, he had no contact with his kid. He didn't try to FaceTime. He didn't want to. All he wanted was him to control me. Mm-hmm. He kept demanding my kid with no way to care for him because he had no child care. He had no car seat, nothing. Because I was like, okay, can you provide proof of child care and provide and the numbers of said child care providers and the car seat? No response. And then from there, it just kind of fucking, so in October, right, when it's lifted, I finally have the chance to speak. Because before this, I wasn't allowed to speak to him for any reason, then only in the regards to the child, and then, and financial stuff and whatnot. And so from there, he tried to manipulate me into lowering child support. He said he felt so guilty for what he did to me and my son that he tried to kill himself, that he tried to hydroplane his truck like into a ditch, and he was hospitalized for a week. I don't know if that actually happened or not, but I do believe the reason he told me after months of no speaking, like 3 or 4 months of not speaking to each other, I believe he told me that to try to like manipulate me, to fuck me up in the head. Oh, yeah. Right? Make me feel bad, like whatever. Because he was like, well, you know, I just told you, I confided in you, like, after so eventually I got emergency custody because he just told me he tried to kill himself, right? And so I was awarded emergency custody. All he had to do was provide proof of therapy. He voluntarily, I just also want to like put this out. He voluntarily entered this agreement. He agreed to providing proof of therapy. He thought this was in the best interest of our kid to provide proof of therapy and a mental health eval. And then we would reconvene in 3 months, right? All he needed to do was like an appointment sheet or no, we don't even need notes from your therapist. Just get a sheet of past appointments, future appointments, whatever, and like a mental health evaluation. That's pretty standard and quick to get. He then says that, so he voluntarily agrees to it. He's like, yeah, no problem. Like, whatever, this sounds good. Like, whatever. Voluntarily, we don't even fight about it. And I get emergency custody. He takes almost 6 months for him to get proof of therapy and get a mental health eval because he said that his therapist said he didn't need it. So regardless of the fact that he voluntarily agreed to it to the court, that he's not going to do it and that I should just give him my kid. So he had him for only Saturday days for 6 months voluntarily because he would not get the shit that he agreed to. And that's all it took for it to be lifted. Like it could be like I could start giving him his kid before we went back to court for it if he gave it to it. You know, just proof of it. He did it. He never would. And it was only until 2 months after the judge was like we went back to court for it, and he was like, well, he randomly magically got a fucking lawyer when he had like no funds. So he re-enlisted for $40,000. Turns out he lied about it, right? As military men do. And so it was just like an entire fucking ordeal. And from there, he basically only did it because the judge is like, I'm not lifting this until you do it. You voluntarily agreed to do this. This requires more evidence, and you're not giving it, so we're not going to lift it. It takes over 6 months for him to do that, about 6 months. And he is accusing me of weaponizing the legal system, which is, it's like blatant projection for me because of that instance. And I'm like, interesting. So like this entire like year and a half, right? Like, so I moved to Denver, my life, you know, was completely turned upside down, and then I start building it back up on my own with me and my kid. I move into like, with thanks to public housing, I move into a luxury apartment in Denver that the housing program covered. And so I moved there. From there I built a really, really good friend group. And I just started building all these blocks, doing all the things that I like wanted to do for myself. You know, like I'm back into showing dogs and training them. Like that's my passion and everything. And I started expanding my like career as an adult performer. And so from there, I tried, because I always told myself, I was like, man, I want to do porn, but like, you know, but like I'm married, like maybe if we ever split. Well, we did. I ended up divorcing him after all that. Turns out he didn't file the paperwork right, so technically I'm divorcing him. I'll take it. And so from there, you know, I got in touch. Originally it was with HBX Models, like a little agency. They get me in touch with Ivan, our good old buddy, old pal Ivan. Yay, Ivan.
Great guy. Shout out to Ivan. That's my guy.
I literally love you, Ivan. And so from there, you know, it helps build back my confidence. You know, like I had my entire world just destroyed. I had nightmares like from like previous trauma. Like I was waking up every night, like I mentioned, clawing at my throat. And that's why I got my neck blacked out.
Okay. I was wondering, after seeing the tattoo and hearing the story, I was wondering if that had anything to do with it.
I had been dealing with like, it's almost like your mind forgets, but your body remembers. Like it's a like thing with PTSD. Like I could feel his hands around my neck, like phantom hands around my throat, just constantly. From the nightmares and just day to day. Like sometimes, like if my shirt was like too close to this, it would just feel like it was like I was getting strangled all over again. And from there, I was just kind of like, I'm over it. I kind of got so fed up with it that I was just like, I want to replace the feeling with something else, anything else, you know. And that's ended up, I blacked out my throat, and then from there did the rest of it. And it hasn't been as bad since. And I don't know what the psychology behind that is, and I don't really give a shit. But it's really, I took back my neck, if that makes sense. Like this.
Oh, it makes perfect sense. I don't know if you happen to catch, but I've done a show with a girl recently. Her name was Brandy Phillips. And she was involved in a horrific car accident at 14 years old. Probably should have died. She was burned on 33% of her body. Her boyfriend, unfortunately, it was in the car with her, didn't make it. It was a crazy scenario how she even lived. And for years, she just said, like, obviously being a woman, you want to feel pretty, you want to feel sexy. And she said she never wanted to wear anything, like no bathing suits, nothing like that. She was so ashamed of her scars. And the husband she was with at the time didn't want her to have any tattoos. They broke up. She started getting tattoos. And somebody recommended, was like, hey, I see you got some scars. Like, have you ever tried tattooing over them? And she's like, I didn't know that was a thing. And he was like, well, I mean, we can try. You know, what's the worst that can happen? It don't take. And they started doing it. And she said she just became so addicted to getting the tattoos, because she was like, as the tattoos covered up the scars, she got her life back. And she was doing it so much in such a little amount of time. And I'll probably connect you to, because she's looking for stories similar to this. She, you know, she done it so much, she actually got sick. She done so much tattooing and like,
flu.
She got the flu. But she was like, I was just addicted. Every time they would let me come back in there, I got it. And little by little, she covered up her scars. And she was like, it was like being, I mean, in the sense, born again. You know, now she wears whatever she wants. She embraces her, you know, femininity. I mean, just it's, she called it like tattoos. I'm going to screw up the wording of it, but tattoos over trauma, I think is how she worded it. And she actually had a reality show on TV where people would come in and get tattoos over, you know, scarring or situations like that. People that had, you know, limbs amputated, they would, you know, tattoo something cool on the end. And sadly, that show got canceled. She's about to start another one, and she's looking for stories to go along with it. So I'll probably connect you to, but I definitely think that there is some sort of symbolism in like something that you don't like about yourself being covered up by something that you do. And it's like you never have to see it again. You have now what you like instead of what you don't like. And I think there's definitely something to that.
I completely agree, and I'd love to be connected with her, to be honest. That sounds right up my alley. With my neck, it, especially with like with most tattoos, but with blackouts especially, it's almost like you're peeling. Your skin's peeling off, like reptilian. For me, I started it on, like, they say, especially with sexual assault victims, I don't know if this statistic is true or not, but they say every 7 years your body like completely regenerates. It's all the cells in your body are completely regenerated, like they've died and they're new. So they say every 7 years your body is essentially new. On my 7 year mark of being out of that, that's when I got my throat blacked out. I was like, it's time. Like I just want my body back to me.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what it was. And so, like, for me, since I've had it done, obviously there's a lot of reactions to the public, but I love it. It's my favorite. I got a new jawline immediately, but but I got snatched. But like it's so much a part of like who I am, like as a person now, that I can't help but love it. I got it done before my chest, which a lot of people are like, oh, yeah, tattoo, whatever. I don't give a fuck. And so with here, it's a point because I was like, I don't want just a black throat. So I got it down to this. I got so many. Is that a bandana? Is that a mask? I'm like, oh my God, it doesn't come off. Stop flapping in the wind. Like, and like it goes like on the back. Let me see if I can show you. It goes up to the back of my head. The back of my head sucked. But
I can imagine. That's probably horrible pain.
From here,
I
have the Norse rune of protection, like on the back of my neck and head area. So it's like it's got my back per se. And like my throat's my own again, and that's protecting me from that in the future. And a reminder, honestly, that I am so much more than they made me. And
that's such like a great message, because like somebody that passes by, they may see it and be like, wow, who would want to do that? But they have no idea that gave you so much of your life back from the trauma that you've been through. And now it's like, it's allowed you to kind of, move past it the best you can. And like, that's why I always tell people, like, you don't judge any choice anybody decides to do with their body. It may not be for you. It may not be for me, but it was for them. Otherwise they wouldn't have fucking did it.
Yeah. And people heal differently, even from the same situation. Like everybody heals differently. And this honestly was such a healing moment for me. Like I plan on getting like a really big back piece. That's also like probably my most two sentimental tattoos I'll ever have. Right. I plan on getting a really big back piece of like a Medusa, like, how like people get the Medusa tattoos for sexual assault. Just a really, really big, like blindfolded Medusa with like kind of like the like mascara tear stains.
Yeah.
And the Grim Reaper on her shoulder. Because with my entire life, the entire story, that I've given, that I've lived, I've practically been edging the Grim Reaper my entire fucking life. Yeah. Like I feel like from being strangled so many times, right, from a young child into adolescence, like, from being 13, 14 to fucking 19, strangled on a regular basis. That's attempted fucking murder. You know what I mean? Like that's not cool. I guess. But from like there to like surviving all of that sexual assault in that time frame, all of that, all of the like harsh instances of rape, all of the coercion, everything, that entire fucking time span. And then into my adult life, I've been sexually assaulted closer to 1,000 times than 0 times. And that's kind of a hard pill to swallow, even for me, So I plan on getting a really big, like neotrad blackwork back piece of like Medusa and the Grim Reaper, because they're both parts of me, and they kind of reflect one another. And so, like, that's why I call myself the Grim Reaper's ex-girlfriend, because I've been edging the Reaper since 2013. I must be his favorite.
And I mean, given everything that you've been through, it is like, I guess, a good thing that now you're able to look back. And I mean, obviously, you've been emotional a few times throughout this episode, but you are able to look back and laugh at some of the parts of it. And I think that it's something to be said about at some point. You just got to. You just got to laugh about it.
It's a coping mechanism. My therapist says, it's.
Well, I mean, like I always tell people, you can only cry so much.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it was. At one point, my one of my close friends now, she was like, don't let them fucking win. Like, they want to break you. That's why they fucking did this. Like, remember who the fuck you are. Like, you're like, my old stage name was Katrina. You're fucking Katrina. Like, fucking take your shit back. Like, cry about it, absolutely, but get your shit together. You got a kid. Like, you're by yourself now. Let's figure it out. I was like, yes, this is what I needed. And so from there, like I said, I was getting in touch with Ivan, and now I'm climbing my way up the ladder. I'm really excited about it. And, in this career field that I'm in now, and I have, I've been featured in like an article by ABN, like within my first, like 2 trips of shooting. I was gotten featured. I was in a project that was featured by ABN. I'm going to the Urban X Awards where I'm helping to host the fucking white party, and I'm really excited about that. I'm co-hosting it.
Advertised, yeah.
And I have like some really big shoots coming in the next couple months that I'm really, really excited about. And I'm just we can only go up from here, like we can only mope about it so much before we're like, okay, let's fucking go. I am so much better off now, which is like, I didn't deserve any of that. No one deserves that. Like, I didn't deserve that, and my kid sure as fuck didn't, and to be able to come from that and just go forward, that was like the hardest part. Like I didn't even know I was being abused most of my life, like that from that. And from there on has just been like fight or flight constantly. And then I left that relationship. Me and my kid, we didn't deserve what we were dealt, and we dealt with it anyway. And we are moving forward, and we're living our best lives, like I fucking, I have my kid pretty much solely. And so from there, we've only gotten better since. And I'm really, really excited. I'm a million times better off than I could ever fucking imagine. My life feels like a goddamn dream. I'm in school for, I'm actually a language major. I'm majoring in Russian and minoring in Japanese. So I'm like, which is like kind of wild, like Cajun, majoring in Russian and
Cajun's its own language too. Some people think
Cajun French is a dialect, is its own dialect. It's almost extinct, but yeah. And then, so like I picked Russian because while I was dealing with all that darkness, right, you have to focus on something or I was going to go fucking insane.
Right.
And so I was like, I'm going to learn a language. And like, I focused on the Russian language. I learned the alphabet in 3 days. I put all of my energy that I was hysterical, like crying, like upset, like just angry at the cards I was dealt. And I put it all into something productive. And I fucking focused on the Russian language. I was like, because anything that looks like English confuses the hell out of me. So I just picked the polar opposite of it, and I got really good at it, and now I'm majoring in it. So I'm like, cool.
Well, that's great. You've been able to get to this point because it sounds like you pretty much had a lifetime of trauma from 13 on until you've kind of found your place where you're at now, and you're obviously very happy and your career is thriving. I do have to ask this, like, obviously you wouldn't have gotten into this industry if it wasn't something you didn't want to do. But one might ask, like, with the trauma you faced, did you have any repercussions about going into this industry with that? Or was there anything holding you back? Or
honestly, no. So this was it was kind of like a way to take back my body, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
But through it, like I've never had my issues have mainly like been like the throat, like whatever. Right. I've never worked with anyone that ever made me uncomfortable. I've always felt safe in every work environment. Like this has kind of been like a journey to take back my power and just keep moving forward. Like this is something that I've thought about doing off and on, but I'm like, I'm not pretty enough for that. I'm like, yes, I fucking am. You know what I mean? Now. And so I've come so far. I'm like, I used to be, like I mentioned before, like the small, like little personality that was just scared of her own fucking shadow. And I'm like, move up the fuck out of the way, bitch. Like I'll shoulder check your ass type shit. I went from like the smallest little caterpillar to a goddamn vampire bat. You know what I mean? Like I overcame everything and came out so much better for it. And through my career, I haven't had any like instances where like I've had PTSD during any of it. I haven't had any like negative experiences with it, even with my trauma like considered. It's I feel safe. I work with people I feel safe with. If I don't have to have an off vibe in any way, shape, or form, I don't work with you. I don't care how big of a creator you are. If I'm not comfortable, I'm not doing it. And so that consent that I can pick who I work with, I feel like my sense of picking where I'm safe at has in itself has been really empowering and powerful for me.
I can see that because you have no risk of something being against your will that you don't want to do, that you're not a willing participant of after, being subjected to things that you weren't, willing participant of for all those years. I can definitely see that. And I can see where the symbolism of taking back your body, owning your body, doing what you want. And it's like, sometimes you want to get that total change from who you were to become your own person. I always tell people like nobody done that better than like Hannah Montana transitioning into Miley Cyrus. Like she shedded that fucking Disney, persona serious. But like at the same time, people say what they want about her. That girl can sing. She's a hell of a performer. People are going to talk. They're always going to talk. But I think she had to do that to shed that, image that she was stuck with for the kids. She had to do that. And did she go above and beyond? Who knows? That's for her to decide. But she's definitely very talented. And I think sometimes just to be able to take back yourself, sometimes it takes total turnaround. And it looks like you've definitely made that.
Yeah, I really have. It's been a long road, and I've been so tired throughout it. And now with this, with this new like power and sense of like self, I've been able to like pretty much I've overcome it all. I'm a survivor. I've survived death itself. Like if I can do that, I can do this. And it's kind of helped me a lot with like my anxiety and stress. Like, I used to be like an overpowering worry wart. Like, oh my god, how am I gonna do this? I was just overwhelmed. And now I'm just like, it'll work out. It'll work out. It'll all work out.
That's so cool, man. And it's probably a lot of less stress on you too.
Life lesson.
Have you ever done many podcasts before?
I was in one, the Local Talent podcast, briefly talking about my first trip to Vegas and how I got punched in the head for it. So
you've done awesome. I mean, like obviously you have to go and relive some things that's probably not your favorite memories, but like you've done awesome at telling the story. I really, appreciate you coming on. I know some of these stories probably weren't easy to relive and revamp, but if you had one message to give to anybody that's in a relationship similar, because it's kind of like you covered the gambit. You done physical abuse in the first one, then you had your body basically destroyed by no fault of your own, then it was more mental, it sounds like, as opposed to physical the second go round. If you've got somebody dealing with one or the other right now, what's your message to them? And we'll kind of close out with that.
Yeah, I would say that it's not your fault. First and foremost, that you don't deserve any of it, because we're almost like ingrained into us that we deserve it to some degree. You don't deserve any of it. None of us do. And it's kind of one of those things where you can't see it when you're in it. Like no one sees it when they're in the cycle until you're out of the cycle. And people, like I had friends that tried to get me out, that like whatever, and I just couldn't do it. Like I couldn't mentally detach. And it's one of those things where it's like, if you're dealing with this, like you need to talk to other people. Like you need the validation, even if it's just a friend, a stranger on the bus stop, like whatever. This is happening to me. Is this normal? Like if you feel like you're crazy, if whatever harmful behaviors, it shouldn't take you like almost you dying to figure out that they don't love you. And
Yeah.
anyone who says harmful things to you, anyone who doesn't try to lift you up, anyone who tries to gaslight you, manipulate you, or it's not my fault you took it that way. Anything as simple as that, tell other people, because eventually it's going to fucking hit you that it's not normal. Like this isn't, like talk to other people and just know that it's not your fault. Like you don't deserve it. You don't deserve any of it is like would be my biggest message.
Thank you very much for coming on and telling your story. You've done it amazing. Obviously some highs, some lows, but we're ending off on a high note. I wish you guys nothing but the best. I know, you and Ivan will probably do great things together. I'm sure your career will continue to flourish. We will put your Instagram in the show notes of this episode so people can go and give you a follow. That's the extent of what I can do on some of the things, because
Yeah.
YouTube will give me a little smack on the ass if I put any other links up there, but I'm sure they can probably be able to find it from your Instagram. So thank you very much for coming on. I really appreciate it. You've been an amazing guest.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm Hollywood Wade. That was Lorelai Suicide. Unfortunately, we are out of time. Go check her out. Follow on Instagram. We'll see you next week here on Crime and Entertainment.